My girlfriend's cat got outside and is missing. At least that's what she thinks. Babe, the tape. I hand my girlfriend a strip of scotch tape. We've been driving all around town putting up missing posters for her cat. The cat's name was Stevie, but she always called him Stinky. I always thought that was cringe. Looks like we're out of posters, I said. What do you think? Time to call it. I want to keep looking, she said. We hop in the car and she starts driving to the edge of town. The thing is, I know this cat isn't missing. And before you jump me and freak out, I didn't hurt the cat, okay? So take a breath. Stevie is 15 years old. Ancient. Starting to have some health problems. Expensive problems. I'm trying to start a life with my girlfriend. I want to have kids. But her maternal instinct is all screwed up because of this dumb cat. Where are you driving? I asked. To the woods, she said. Anyways, I just humanely, dropped the cat off at a shelter. Nothing nefarious here. I just want to marry my girlfriend and be able to afford kids. Not have to pay 20 grand for cat surgery. Come on, babe, my girlfriend said. Someone texted me that they might have seen Stinky in the woods. Hell, I love the girl. I humor her and follow her into the woods. We're pretty deep when I see a freshly dug hole in the ground. The shovel standing up sticking out of the pile of dirt. You know, my girlfriend says, when Stinky went missing the first thing I did was call every shelter in the city. He's safe by the way. I picked him up and he's at my mother's. She pulls out my .32 revolver. Hey! That's not a toy. She shoots one in the air and points it back at me. Get in the hole. It's not what you think. I want to get married. Have kids. I love you. You need to get over that old cat. I get in the hole. Get over Stinky. I'm over you. She fires 3 times in my stomach, the bullets punch through me. It hurts so bad I can't even move. She starts shoveling the dirt on me. You haven't killed me yet. What are you doing? It's just a cat. Please, shut up. I'm burying you alive. Stories number 2. Aita for refusing to hire a kosher catering company for my wedding. Throwaway. I, 28F, am getting married in April. My brother, 34M, reached out about the catering because his girlfriend Jessie, 37F, is Jewish and needed a kosher meal. I was fine with that. We had guests who had nut, dairy, and gluten allergies, so I just added it into my list of special meals to add. When I told him what I planned on having for appetizers, dinner, and dessert, he got upset saying that what I chose wasn't kosher. I was confused because I planned on having a specific meal for Jessie and he said that that won't work because it's not just about the food but how it's stored and prepared. If the catering company I chose wasn't kosher, then certain foods would be stored together, prepared at the same time, served at the same meal, etc. He basically told me that I'd have to hire a catering company specifically for kosher means and change my entire reception meal plan. I'm not doing that. I plan to have a seafood bar, which is a big no-no for kosher diets, among several other foods I couldn't have at my wedding anymore. Just about every food I planned, all my favorites, I wouldn't be able to have. Plus I looked into it and a catering company like that would raise my catering bill by thousands. I told my brother I was sorry but I wouldn't do that. He got angry saying that I'm purposely excluding his girlfriend, and when I suggested she bring a separate meal instead, he got even more mad saying that it was horrible of me to expect that of her. I think they're being ridiculous. Why should I change the entire menu, that I was so excited about, for my wedding into something I don't even like for my brother's girlfriend? Why would I fork over an extra $3,500 for food I don't want just because she doesn't want to bring a Tupperware bowl of food to the reception? My brother said I'm prioritizing superficial things over family, which honestly made me laugh because he's been dating his girlfriend for 4 months. She's not family. He had to throw a fit to get her invited to our wedding because he didn't even know her when RSVPs went out. I haven't even met her. And I'm expected to change so much about my big day for her. Aita Reddit. I didn't think about having a meal delivered from another restaurant. But a big part of the issue my brother is presenting is that there would be non-kosher foods at the wedding still. Stories number 3. I left some volatile gummy bears on the desk. Now my coworker wants to sue me. This is in Michigan. I am originally from Germany and very unsure how the law works in the United States, so bear with me. Last year I received a job offer to work as an assistant professor in the German language department at a large university in Michigan. I recently finished my PhD and was really excited to fill a research position, and possible postdoc position, in the specific field I applied to. Most of my time I give classes in German literature, but additionally the university would like me to help students with writer's block, so I joined an interdisciplinary workshop. There are at least 4 people connected to this workshop and we get along fine most of the time. Sadly, there is one elderly woman who made me out as a rival day one. I do not know what provoked her, but there is something about me that makes her mad. Cue the incident. I had an appointment with a student, gave him some tips and instructions and left my bowl with gummy bears on the desk. Mind you, these gummy bears are sugar-free and volatile. If you eat more than a handful you are in serious fart troubles and you will occupy the toilet bowl for the rest of your day. But my coworker ate the whole bowl. First she excused herself from any commitments and then she called in sick. The next day she confronted me and blamed me for the whole ordeal, that I deliberately placed those gummy bears and it was all a ploy to humiliate her. According to her, she has already informed HR and her lawyer and that I will be kicked out of the country in no time. The only thing I can blame myself on is that me and my colleagues giggled at her bowel distress signals. Update: we are still in Michigan. I had I guess a fruitful conversation with HR yesterday. My coworker and I had separate interviews yesterday, no blaming, just telling what happened and how our workplace could be improved on in the future. I make it quick. Her side of the story looks like this. Herbie Castle deliberately placed sweets laced with laxatives in a commonly shared office space to make me and other people sick. My side: I forgot my bowl with gummy bears, which I gladly and generously share with everybody in my department, not assuming that anybody would eat the whole bowl of sugar-free gummy bears. That would be an argumenta ad common senso, I assume, in legal terms. I even brought an original German gummy bears packet with me to prove that I didn't mean any harm. True story though, my pants had been, were and have been shat during the last couple of days, and that without any laxative gummy bears. I hope these tenses fit. Hard to believe, but we talked during lunch yesterday and made up. She is a nice lady in fact, but had issues with food allergies in the past. And I would love to just close this story with a we reconciled and everything was fine, but there was another major bit of a wow moment in the room when I learnt that both hostile coworker and me have already been put under scrutiny, HR words, by another assistant professor who had joined in our workshop project. Is this fucking Game of Thrones? Stories number 4. My soon-to-be ex-husband has been secretly recording our daughter for years. So my husband, 45M, has been recording our daughter, 21F, and taking pictures of her against her will. For context, her records her leaving her room. He records her doing dishes. He takes random pics of her doing basic things. If he is sitting on one couch when she comes downstairs, he shifts to another couch so he can record her fully. We recently learned of this behavior when she noticed that every time she comes down from her room he will prop his phone or his iPad up and start taking pictures/videos of her. She suspected it was happening, so one day while he was out we decided to go through his iPad. To our astonishment, he has been doing this for years, even dating back to when she was just a minor. She has asked him to stop, to which he just smirks in her face and keeps doing it. Yesterday she caught him recording her while she had her back to him using the computer. She also said she heard the definite sound of him sending a message soon after. A few weeks ago, we called the police on him because an argument arose that got quite aggressive over the recordings. The police told us it is a one-party state and that he is allowed to record. I am in the process of saving up to move us out and getting a divorce, but I want to know if there is anything that I can do in the meantime to get this behavior to stop legally. My daughter has set boundaries that he is not respecting and he keeps causing intentional conflicts just to get a rise out of us. Stories number 5. Aita for being turned off by my roommate's breakup. For context, Gracie and I have been roommates since February 2021, along with Kennedy and Hillary. We usually get along, but things have been tense lately. Gracie's boyfriend of 1.5 years broke up with her 2 weeks ago, though they're still hooking up. During their relationship, I often pointed out that she didn't have her own friends besides us. Since the breakup, Gracie has been difficult to be around. She frequently yells things like, "No one loves me," or, "Why doesn't anyone love me," when we're nearby. While I feel bad for her, this behavior feels manipulative. She wants us to feel guilty and obligated to hang out with her, which we've been doing, but it's exhausting. On Friday night, Kennedy reserved the living room for after dinner. On Tuesday, I told Gracie around 3:30 that we'd need the space at 8. She immediately complained, saying, "So you're kicking me out?" I reminded her she had hours to use it beforehand and that we rarely comment on how much she monopolizes the room. She grumbled but stayed upset. When our friend Nate arrived, Gracie loudly vented about being lonely and snapped at him when he kindly invited her to join us. She said, I wasn't invited to dinner or your hangout, creating an uncomfortable atmosphere. After Nate left the room, I gently told Gracie that while I understand she's hurting, her behavior is making it hard for us to want to spend time with her. I explained that I don't have the capacity to keep revisiting the same conversations when she doesn't take advice. Later, we returned to the house and decided to play Mario Party, a game I'd been excited to try but hadn't been able to coordinate with everyone's schedules. Gracie stormed out of her room, yelling, "You're really playing without me," and went on about how we were supposed to be her friends. Her self-pitying rant made us all uncomfortable. I finally said, "We're playing, so," and she stormed back to her room. We enjoyed the game, but I couldn't shake my frustration. I've supported Gracie in every way I can, listening, giving advice, reminding her to take her meds, and even cleaning up after her. But now, I feel like I can't handle her constant negativity anymore. Am I the a-hole for wanting to distance myself from Gracie during her breakup? More info. The roommates had a discussion and agreed about reserving the living room. When it is an open invitation, we say so, and if it isn't, we just reserve the living room. We have all individually invited people over, sometimes we include each other and sometimes it's just our time. All roommates get along. I won't say we are not friends, but we are friends because we are roommates, if that makes sense. I did not tell Gracie she has no real friends on Friday. I mentioned it earlier in their relationship because I wanted Gracie to have real friends outside her relationship. This reserving has served us well in the past. It is just after her breakup she is taking everything to the extreme. We do not exile each other to our rooms. The living room and kitchen are connected, so we all walk around, say little hellos, and go on. It is a universal understanding in our home that not being invited isn't personal, it's just time without them. Yes, we all share a living space that we adequately communicate when we are reserving it, because sharing doesn't always mean all at once but also at designated times. There are 4 roommates, Kennedy, Gracie, Hillary, and I. Nate is strictly Kennedy and I's friend. Gracie doesn't really like Nate, and I asked her if she'd like us to not have him over anymore, and she said no, he's fine. I see now I need to establish the difference between friendly roommate and being friends. Stories number 6. My F25 husband, M26, doesn't want me to put my maiden name on our front door. How do I deal with this? Hello. Me and my husband are renovating my grandpa's apartment. The apartment is being passed down generations. It was my grandfather's, then my father's, now it's mine. It's also under my name as I'm the 3rd generation living there. We've been debating getting a piece engraved with our names and last name for our front door. By marriage I took his last name. And I said we should put our names and the last name we share. And under that we can put my family maiden name with smaller letters, just so people would know that the apartment is still in the family. Not only other people but also it means to me and our family. My husband strongly disagreed and was kinda rude, saying I should put only our names and his last name. I didn't like his tone also. I might sound selfish and you could judge me for saying this, but this isn't his dad's or grandfather's apartment. It means the world to me that my dad decided to give the apartment to me and to us together so we could share our lives there, just as my grandparents and my parents did. I feel like I'm losing part of myself and part of my family by not putting our family name on the door. My grandfather worked very, very hard to achieve all of what I have right now. And it's kind of small appreciation. I love my husband and I love my new last name, but also I can't just let go of my past self and my other family. Stories number 7. Aita for asking another woman number in front of my girlfriend and telling her to get her insecurities in check. First time ever posting. Normal, just read the stories and never thought I would be posting, but here I am. Sorry for the throwaway account, but I want my snooping account to stay the way it is. If I do anything wrong, I'm sorry in advance. I'm writing based on what I read before and how it was written as well. Sorry for the wall of text below. Basically, as my title says. I, 29M, asked another girl her number and email address in form of my girlfriend, 28F. She freaked out for no reason and I told her to get her insecurities in check. I know how it sounded, but let me explain. Last week Monday, I started training. The company I work for sent me for training on tender documents and everything pertaining to tender documents. The requirements, scope, BOQ, format, qualities, everything. Basically from the ground up, and more in-depth training as my current knowledge, as well as the evaluation of the contractors responding to the tender document. In total 10 of us from the company were selected to do the training. It's one person from each of the branches we have across the country. Luckily the training is conducted in our city so I don't have to travel. The training was going well, but this past Friday all of us were put in 2-persons teams to write a tender document from the ground up for the building of a 4-story, multi-unit condo. All of us in this course have the basic knowledge to write a tender document, but our lecturers wanted to have an accurate account of our current understand of all the procedures to assist us better, as she said what I understand someone else will struggle with and vice versa. I was put in a team with Jessie. From the jump I'm going to say Jessie is a beautiful girl, not going to lie and say anything or something else just to make the situation play out in my favor. Our assignment was given to us at the end of Friday and we were told we have up until this coming Friday to complete as much of the tender as possible. Anyone that has worked with tender documents will know this is almost impossible because of all the information that needs to be obtained for the document. After the day was done, Jessie and I were standing outside talking. I was waiting for my girlfriend's Andrea to come and pick me up. Her car is in for repairs, so every morning she dropped me off and went to work in my car. When she arrived I introduced them to each other and gave a brief explanation that we will be working together on the assignment. As I wanted to leave I remembered that I had no way to coordinate with Jessie on our assignment. I asked her for her cell number and email address so we could collaborate with everything. Sorry for the back and forth below. On our way home Andrea was completely quiet, and shut down every attempt to talk to her about anything, her day, what she did. When we got home I made a suggestion that we go out to eat and do some fun, but she shut that down. I got a bit irritated because every attempt to talk to her was just shot down and she refused to engage about anything. I asked her what is wrong and told her to not say nothing because something was clearly wrong, and her just complete ignoring me and shutting me out for no reason is going to cause a fight, and I don't even know what the hell is wrong in the first place. She responded with like you don't know. I said I genuinely don't know what is wrong, as everything was fine 20 minutes ago when she picked me up. She shouted that I was disrespectful for asking a girl in front of her number. I said so, I explained to you we are working together on this. I need to work with her on the assignment given to us. It's for work, something I need to do, no other reason. I'm not going to flirt with her or ask her out, that never crossed my mind. She asked how did it happen that we got put together on the assignment. I told her the person training us did. She said I should call the trainer and ask to be reassigned to a different person because she doesn't want me to work with a girl like that. I asked a girl like what? I don't know her personally outside of the training. Fuck, I don't even know her age and she knows her less than I do, so what is she meaning with a girl like that? She said, a girl that looks like that. I asked her is this about her looks? She didn't answer me and I asked again. She shouted back yes, I don't want you near someone that looks like that, and now you have her number in your phone. I told her, I love you, I want to be with you. I will not entertain someone else like that, and if she crosses any lines I will immediately report her and inform the trainer and ask to be reassigned, but not before that, as accusing someone of inappropriate behavior in this industry is taken very seriously and you will be blacklisted if you are found to be guilty, and I will not do anything like that to someone that has not done anything wrong in the first place. If I ask to be reassigned I will have to give a reason and I will not make up a reason. She started to shout at me again, saying if I really love her I will give her this as assurance and not work with her. Not proud of this, but I raised my voice back at her. This is the first time I have ever done that in our 4-year relationship. I told her get your fucking insecurities in check, because that is what will be breaking us apart, not another woman. You have had a problem with every other woman that you think looks better than you in my vicinity, and you make it my problem in the end, even though I have never given you a reason to doubt me. I was super pissed in that moment and I asked, have I ever given you a reason to doubt me? She had tears in her eye and asked if I meant what I said. Again I shouted my question, asking her if I have ever given her a reason to doubt me. She said in a low voice, no I haven't. I asked, then why the fucking mistrust are you cheating on me that you think I will do the same? She had tears on her face and looked like I punched her. She immediately grabbed her phone and offered every device she has for me to go through to check. She said she has never cheated and will never cheat. I am welcome to all of her things anytime. This is where I think I turned into the asshole. I said, if that is not the case she need to get her shit together and seek help for whatever is wrong, because I'm done dealing with these issues that are put on me. But in her head, I don't know how to fully describe it, but I was hot with anger. It felt like my head would explode. She tried to hug me, but I told her to back off and just leave me alone to cool off. She ran off to our room and I could hear her cry. This broke my heart to hear, but I was too angry and the anger took over. I left the house and took a drive. It has been like this since Friday. I have been sleeping in the spare room since then. She has asked me to go come to bed with her, but I'm not interested. On Sunday I did have a talk with her and told her to go and see a therapist to help with these issues. I truly love her, but she is making it more and more difficult. Luckily, she hasn't tried anything like call the training company and complain. I have heard her on the phone with her sister to get advice on how to fix everything, and even her sister told her she is crazy and needs to see a therapist. She has sent me link of her searching for a therapist, and I did tell her this morning I'm proud that she is seeking help. She asked if we could go back to normal. I told her no, she needs to work on herself first and then we can talk about us and fix what is broken. She went into a panic attack thinking I'm breaking up with her. I got her to calm down and told her no, I do love her and want to stay, but I don't see that with this current version of herself that she became this jealous person that goes into hysterical mode when someone else she thinks looks better than her is just close to me, as it has become too much for me. She needs to work on herself and I will help with that, but if I don't see change with her behavior then we will need to go our separate ways. I got a couple of texts from her mother today calling me an asshole for what I said and throwing her daughter insecurities in her face. I sent the text to her and said this is not the way to go about fixing anything, and she responded with screenshots of her own. She asked her mother advice and detailed what happened. She was truthful, but her mother just stuck to what I said and not what she said, so yay. This is where we are, Aita, for what I said. Edit to add. I see this coming up. I have been dealing with this exact issue with every woman my GF thinks looks better than her the last 3 years. This isn't the first time, and I have tried a lot over the last 3 years and I'm just at the end of my rope. All other methods to help her haven't helped. Couples counseling before hasn't helped, so my stance is now she needs to fix her insecurities with an individual counselor first, then we can go forward. Stories number 8. Stepmom claims she's been abandoned for Christmas, so now I want to abandon her altogether. Advice needed. My dad's wife has sent a message to my dad's family stating that since my dad and her were abandoned by most all our children, we hope to at least have some hope of family around us Thanksgiving Day. She goes on to say we're planning on lunch, so please respond if you're coming and what you plan to bring. I originally got annoyed and upset by this because by most all our children she means her 2 kids who are in a different state and can't make it this year because they have other family. My sister and I, however, were planning on coming for both Thanksgiving. We had talked about Thanksgiving on Halloween with both her and my mom present. My mom said she was doing Thanksgiving. We said we were planning on going. Mom does Thanksgiving every year at 12. She knows this. So, I'm a little annoyed, but I chose to ignore it and respond with, we have already planned to be at Mom's for lunch, but we'd love to come by at 3 and visit with everyone and join y'all for a second helping or dessert. Now, mind you, that lots of others had already responded. I took a day to calm down so I could respond in kind. As soon as I sent that into the group text, she responds minutes later with hi all and thank those that have given answers to this family request. It appears the only ones who can come to the family event are, insert names here. So there will only be lunch and dessert for 4. Y'all enjoy your family and holiday plans for Thanksgiving and for Christmas. Be safe, I mean, that's basically don't bother. So I replied saying we were looking forward to seeing everyone, but we got the message, and we'll see y'all next time. We're thankful for family. Happy Thanksgiving. Dad was on this text and we hear crickets. No one else responded. I got a call from one aunt and the other messaged me to say how sorry they were for how she was treating me. Nothing from my dad. My sister ended up calling Dad to say how upset we were, and he basically took her side and said that they always play second fiddle to Mom. This is where I lost my mind. They are invited through the year to kids' things and family dinners that my sister or I plan. They choose not to come, because they are busy with their friends or her side of the family. When I say kids' things, I mean their birthday parties, piano recitals, football games, and choir concerts, just to name a few. Dad does make a point to come to a few of them, but honestly, it's probably not even half of the events. My mom, she comes to all of them. I don't think she's missed a single one this year. So yes, my mom gets first fiddle because she makes a huge effort to be with us. I don't say anything or get upset with them when they don't come because honestly, I understand. Life happens and we're not the only people in their lives. They will make time when they can. I am doing the same. I was wanting to come by and spend time and not abandon them. I was willing to bring a dessert. No compromising though. Her way or nothing at all. You're not welcome here unless you do exactly as I want. I am ready to officially abandon her now. Look, I have dealt with her rudeness for 20+ years. There are many, many other examples I can give. I have tried and I can't do it anymore. I have had at least 7 conversations with Dad and her about how she talks to me and treats me. Nothing has changed. She continues to behave like this. All of this was a simple phone call. Hey, we'd really like for y'all to come, not just stop by later. We'd like to sit down and eat with you. How can we make this happen? I would have said that I am making moms a priority because I'm not sure how much longer I have with my grandparents, who are in their late 80s. I'm really trying to prioritize my time with them. Is there any way you could have it later or for dinner? But there was no conversation, just attacks. Do it my way or nothing at all. And this is how she always does it. No matter how many conversations we have. So y'all, I'm asking, what should be my next move? I'm ready to just abandon the both of them. It really hurts my heart, but I feel like I've done what I can at this point and the only thing that I can change is me. I'm ready to cut her out completely and only spend time with him. But I also know, that could be an unrealistic expectation. So do I just cut them both out? Are there other options I'm not seeing? Any feedback would be awesome. Thanks for taking the time to read, this was a long one. Stories number 9. Completely embarrassed by my MAGA boomer aunt in my recent trip 600 miles away. Haven't been back home to New York in about 6 years. I've been dating my current girlfriend for about 3.5 years and haven't taken her up to see my hometown and family. Until this weekend for an old friend's wedding. I only really talked to one particular aunt, still seeing as after we moved, we became out of sight out of mind. I knew she was a little wacky and crazy, but I never realized she was MAGA crazy. Me and my girlfriend were sitting on the couch watching TV and a commercial play for a prescription medicine that happened to feature a gay couple for 3 seconds or so, and that prompts my aunt to go on a 10-minute rant about how they're forcing gay ideology on us and the children and indoctrinating the kids to be gay, and it should be the people's choice to be gay or not and not shove it down our throats. Not to mention my friend who picked us up from the airport to take us to her house is gay and my girlfriend is bi and I just exist, and it was very awkward because all three have had to sit through this rant. Ahe also proceeds to say that there are too many gay people for it to be natural and it's just a fad and there really aren't that many out there. Then starts to go on rants about illegal immigrants and hits all the typical MAGA boomer talking points. Then she said something about how Trump is a great businessman and will do a great job running the country, and I tried pointing out that he bankrupted multiple businesses and she said you can't count those, that was then and this is now, like, that's not how any of this works lol. And to top it off, she is benefiting everything that Trump wants to cut or get rid of. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, disability, and probably other things she gets from her being retired and disabled. It was so embarrassing, she never used to be like that, and I hate that it was my girlfriend's first time meeting some of my extended family. Stories number 10. Don't force your charity on me. I work for a company that gloats about how charitable it is. It also pays below market wages to its employees. So the company is hosting its annual Christmas charity event. It passed out a list of needy families to each department to fill. It contributes by kicking in $200 on top of what we give. But my department's family has 11 members in it. And they want PlayStation, and Nike, and top name stuff. I'm done with subsidizing everyone. I had to put my name next to something, so I went to Goodwill and picked up an item on their list. I mean, I shop there for my clothes because the company stiffs me, so it should be good enough for them, right? Stories number 11. My neighbors are an absolute nightmare. Me and my girlfriend moved into our first home together and the downstairs neighbors are such a nightmare that we regret moving in. The neighbors are an old couple and they literally complain over everything. The old woman doesn't complain as much as the old man, but she is still a pain. We can't even walk around the house without one of them banging on the ceiling. Apparently our TV is on way too loud when it isn't. It's on without headphones for about 2 hours in the evening and it's just the TV volume. We don't have any soundbar or speakers or anything, it's just the TV, but again it's on quietly. They also complain if we flush the toilet at night as apparently it disturbs them. They also complain when we use our washing machine as apparently it rumbles the floor, but our washing machine is very quiet and when we first got that washing, we had to keep checking it was actually on due to how quiet it is. My girlfriend works in the afternoon while I work 0600 to 1500, which means I get up at 0400 to get ready for work and apparently I'm stomping around and crashing around, which is not true. I'm exceptionally quiet at that because I don't want to wake the dragon. Walking down the stairs to exit, the husband always opens his door to start his complaining and I'm really getting sick of it. If we were being loud then fair enough, but we are both quiet people and the only bang that has happened in this house was when I put the chest of drawers down too hard when we was moving in. The rest of the noise is just normal household noise. Yesterday when my girlfriend was doing the hoovering, the old woman came up knocking on the door asking for us to turn the hoover down as herself and husband can hear it, and apparently, it's been on for ages. First, it's not been on for ages, it's been on for about 10 minutes, and second, how the fuck does one turn a hoover down? I'd like some advice please, because I can see these neighbors are going to be a problem and God help us if we actually cause a real noise. I wrote to the council about the situation, but we probably won't receive a reply till Monday or later in the week as I think they are closed weekends. Stories number 12. My entire existence is now benign. I've, 60F, just realized most of my life is benign existence, and I think I'm okay with that. I retired almost 4 years ago from a high-pressure, high-paced job that I mostly loved, and I initially struggled with feeling extraneous. It took a few years before I felt like I wasn't a drag on society. I have 2 grandsons who were born after we retired, and my husband, 68M, and I help out with them as needed. Hubby has enjoyed hunting with our oldest son, and we've started putting in a rain garden in our front yard. We also lost both our dogs last year, and I've never been without dogs. So last month we started fostering a medical need doggo named Fiona, and we'll probably have her for another few weeks. Hubby just got home from running errands and brought me a miniature flashlight in the shape of a rhino. I think I'm going to be okay. Stories number 13. I hate that my country is turning into a cheap paradise for middle-class foreigners. Nowadays we have hundreds of people, couples and families coming to live in our country because an electrician with 2 years experience in countries like the UK, France and the Netherlands earns twice as much as a head doctor with 20 years experience in my country. I don't like it because they gentrify my country and turn it into a kind of cheaper Dubai where Taylor Swift concert tickets are cheaper. Every day I'm approached by blonde women with British accents asking where to catch the train to Cascais. The center of Lisbon is all tourist stores and expensive brunches. The airport is just Ryanair planes offering flights for €20. They only come here because things are cheaper and because it's hot in November. I don't know what else to write, but I know that this bothers many people. Stories number 14. Aita for telling my ex-Mill what makes her think she can see my child. My ex-Mill and always bumped heads. It wasn't because of me but her. When I started dating her son she didn't like it. I never said anything disrespectful to her because I wasn't raised that way. I tried to make her like me but nothing worked. She was just that typical boy mom who wanted her son herself. She would try to get in the way of her son and I when we would do couple things. I remember when she said I'm taking her son from her. Didn't know why she acted like this. I'm okay with the rest of spouse family. Years later I got married to her son in Honduras. I always look back at that day and wish I could have it again. My Mill was invited but she didn't come because she said she was disappointed in her son for choosing me. Wish this was a dream honestly. My spouse was upset that his mom didn't come but we made it through. After that we planned the rest of our life. Sorry for ranting my head off. 2023 was when I found out I was pregnant. This is where everything starts. My spouse told his family I was pregnant and they were happy but my ex-Mill. She didn't care nor congratulate me. The only thing she told me was that she hopes the baby doesn't make it. Every day it replays in my head. If I was being a child into this world, I didn't want them to be around my ex-Mill and that's how it is now. During my pregnancy she was not heard from anyone, never received anything for the baby, not that she had to. But last year was very difficult for me. My husband passed from a motorcycle accident so I felt alone. It's sad because everyone was grieving. I still wish he could meet our daughter. My daughter is turning 1 this year and my Mill has not seen her ever. She sat in her lane and I stayed in mine. But surprisingly I guess she felt like getting in contact with me. She's been blocked but the only way she reached me was from my Facebook which is public. She had to inbox me with a paragraph. She said she knows it's been a year since we talked but I think it's my right to see my granddaughter, so stop keeping her from me. It was very bold of her to think after what she said, she had a right to see my child. I didn't want to do the back and forth so I said what makes for her she can see my child. Aita. Stories number 15. I haven't told a soul. The only person that said it out loud is my doctor. I found out about 2 years ago. I'll be around for at least 18 more months. When I go to the doctor's appointment, I just listen. My eyes have so many tears, the most, but I can't make a sound and I know I keep my facial expressions blank. I found out while I was devastated by a ruthless custody battle. Then I was in a close relationship with a guy that was struggling with BPD so of course anything going on with him was huge and blaring. There were also the psychological mind games that go with that and I was spinning too dizzy to say, I know your stuff is way more important but I just found out I'm dying, like pretty soon too. The one time I alluded to it he mentioned later that he didn't believe me and saw it as attention-seeking behavior. I didn't talk about it again and I don't know him anymore, after 3 years. He's a stranger in a blink of an eye and that's kind of how friendships have been in general lately. There's just no one on earth I feel close enough to you to say something like, by the way I'm dying. Like literally I won't exist in 18 months most likely. Isn't that nuts? I'm only 43 and my son is 8. I see how self-absorbed everyone I know is and I just don't see the point of interrupting them while they are the star of their show and everything is so dramatic. On their shows already, I know they love their spotlight and I've never needed one. I got to this city in my late 30s with my baby. I worked a lot and I always had my son with me. It's hard enough to make friends when you are older. Then I unraveled for a different reason, and I can't imagine I've been an approachable person. The situations and energies I let surround me haven't been very intentional, and it's all been pretty chaotic. I haven't asked a single question in the hospital. I don't speak. My parents just found out. The doctor explained why I needed surgery, so my mom will come down in a couple weeks, and I have an old friend watching my dog. All I think about is my son. He really matters, no one else does. I just want to make sure it's all about him before I leave. He's the one that my tears are about. If it wasn't for him, I know I wouldn't even cry. I would just fade out and go unnoticed. Stories number 16. Aita for telling my family I'm not forgetful anymore, I'm just choosing not to be around them. I'm 22M, the youngest of 5, and I have a bad relationship dynamic with them all. The reason? ADHD that went undiagnosed until I was 14 and was then brushed aside, and I was told I was using being diagnosed as an excuse for being forgetful and bad at time keeping. When they finally accepted the diagnosis was to blame for all this stuff, and I wasn't just being difficult for funsies and was seriously struggling, they became less dismissive and started mocking me for it and bringing it up more than they had when they were actively annoyed and scolding me. When I was younger, I was awful in school, had poor timekeeping and time management, would forget shit all the time and lost my focus frequently. I also struggled to sit in place. I was always fidgeting or something. It was suggested a few times by teachers that I might have ADHD, and my parents said no, and they needed to be sterner with me. They'd yell at me when I'd get sent home with notes for not paying attention in class, not finishing work, getting stuff wrong. They'd get mad at me for not remembering we had something on. They'd get mad at me for moving too much. My siblings would taunt me when they knew I'd forgotten something. Sometimes they yelled at me if I forgot something they wanted to know about. I struggled a lot. Getting the diagnosis did help, but treatment didn't start for 2 years, and by then I was so close to done with school that I just accepted I was going to fail my classes, and I started planning what I'd do. Then I lived with 2 years of everyone cracking jokes about it. Some of my siblings even joked that I was useless and worthless, and why did anyone even bother speaking to me? I didn't get to leave as soon as I thought because of COVID, but when I did leave I threw myself into this program for people with poorly managed and treated ADHD, and it helped me. I got support, was able to find a job that worked for me, and I was able to make enough to rent a place with some friends. I stopped engaging with my family at the same time, and it was so freeing. They have invited me to stuff, and sometimes I ignore it while other times I say no. Recently they brought it up to me that I'm forgetting a lot again, and they told me not to make excuses for not showing up. I told them I'm not being forgetful, I'm just choosing to not be around them because they do not make my life better and they add no value to my life. I told them I am tired of being the butt of the joke and have my suffering mocked and laughed about like they didn't ignore what I was going through for so many years. This happened over a family group chat they added me to. Now they're saying how awful I am for not accepting their jokes and avoiding my own family. Aita. Stories number 17. What to do after a failed proposal. Now I, 28M, live awkwardly with my girlfriend, 27F. My girlfriend and I have been together for 2 years, and 6 months ago, she asked me to propose to her within 6 months, which I did. During this time she hinted heavily that she wanted an engagement ring with particular stones that were difficult to come by at a regular jeweler, so I had to buy it from Glamra. It ended up costing more than $500, which was more than I wanted to spend, but I was so sure she was going to be my spouse that I could stretch my budget since she appreciates it so much when she gets something she loves, and this ring was perfect. The time comes and I propose. I do all sorts of lovely shit and creative stuff to make it a perfect proposal, and she accepts before starting to cry as she reveals she is unsure if she loves me because her job has been so stressful lately, and her feelings had developed since telling me she wanted to be engaged. It hit me like a brick wall, and I thought my life was pretty much over. We had a week's break before getting back together to try a second time. Things are working out somewhat fine, but we're not at the point we were in the past, that is pretty clear. Now I was going to return the ring as it wasn't engraved or anything, but now Glamor's fucking return policy fucks me in the ass, telling me I can't return it because a piece of fucking paper is cut on the ring. Everything was returned including the box and all certificates, but the paper that was attached to the ring was removed temporarily in the proposal, and I won't get to return it. I get very pissed off at the world by wanting to be alone and not talk since I've essentially lost $500 on a worthless ring that I can't use for anything. What sucks so much is that I bought it because the woman I love told me it was the thing she wanted the most in the world. Now I'm afraid I'm going to resent her for making me waste so much. She simply said, "That sucks," and carried on with her day. I feel like it's very unfair for me to take the hit when she changed her mind without hinting or telling me. Do you guys think this relationship is just doomed to fail at this point, or is it worth trying to mend it? Am I being unreasonable for thinking I shouldn't be responsible for taking the $500 loss alone? And is Glamour the worst jewelry company in the world? Edit, I'll let the money go. I understand it's petty of me to let it bother me so much. It's just that it is the latest thing that has been going on. As for the relationship, it seems like it is all doom and gloom according to Reddit. I'll keep thinking on it and I'll see what I'll do. I'm at least going to be working on myself, that's for sure. Edit 2, Reddit is so harsh on cheap engagement rings. It almost makes me think half if you are working in the jewelry industry. It's only a ring, it shouldn't be the basis of the entire relationship. Edit 3, I don't know if it's an American thing, but spending $500 on a ring is considered fair over here. My friends who are engaged or married have spent in the range of $200–$1000 and it has not been a contentious problem for them. Edit 4, people are still commenting on the price of the ring. I'm not from America. Everyone I talked to was fine with the price of it. Hell, not everyone over here proposes with a ring. It's definitely just Americans who are this obsessed with engagement rings. As for the relationship, the reason why she rejected the proposal was that she felt some slight feelings for someone at work. She never acted on those feelings, but she said they were there. She moved in with her parents for a week to sort out her feelings, and found out she did love me and not the other guy. Is that good enough to warrant me taking her back? I don't know, but I'm trying to figure that out. I'll make my decision over this week. As for the ring, I'm past it. I don't give a fuck about it or the money anymore. Edit 5, I've actually read every single comment on this post, and I appreciate all of you who have been supportive and given great advice aside from the people who are obsessing over the price. Unfortunately, it feels like it's going the way the people of Reddit are proclaiming. I'm probably going to end it soon. Edit 6, I think a lot of people are misunderstanding the engagement, and it's probably because I haven't been clear in my post. After 1.5 years we were having an exceptional time together and we both saw ourselves getting married at some point. I told her jokingly if we should get engaged, and she told me she wanted it to be done properly with a ring and at a time when she wouldn't know in advance, but that she would appreciate it if it happened sometime within 6 months. 6 months later I was sure nothing had changed because everything was still the same to me, we enjoyed ourselves and we were building a future together. When I got rejected at the proposal, I was utterly whiplashed because we sort of already agreed upon that we wanted to be engaged. I've been feeling sick all day since I posted this on Reddit. I couldn't even finish my shift at work today because I cannot distract myself from what is going through my mind. I concede, this was already doomed the moment I posted here. I realize that now. I guess I just needed subconscious confirmation or something. I feel sick to my core, but there is no other way of escaping it. Even though most people of Reddit seem to think she's horrible, I honestly don't carry any ill will towards her. I wish she communicated with me back when she was changing her mind, but after coming back from her break at her parents', she has tried to work on herself. Unfortunately, I think she broke something irreplaceable inside me on the day of the proposal, which I've tried to get over to save our relationship, but I'm conceding defeat because I cannot live with myself this way. Edit 7, I broke the news. Lots of crying from the both of us. She tells me that she loves me. She doesn't want to give up our relationship. I tell her I'm depressed and haven't gotten over the failed proposal. She says she couldn't control her feelings, but that she knows she loves me. I said it's for the best if she moves back with her parents, and she wonders for how long. I said I don't know, but at least for December most likely. She told me I could take as long as I wanted. My plan is to live my best life, and if I miss her still, maybe we could try again, if not, end it for good. For anyone thinking she's been cheating, she has not, nor do I think she will. Stories number 18. Aita for telling my pregnant friend I can't stand her complaining anymore. I want to start off by saying that I, F29, am 7 months pregnant myself. My friend Cassie, 25F, is also pregnant, and about 7 weeks ahead of me. At first it was awesome being pregnant together, we'd vent about things, talk about how excited we are, plan mommy-to-be dates, etc. But now her attitude has been rubbing me the wrong way and I can't stand talking to her about it anymore. She's gone from occasional venting to texting me upwards of 5 times a day about every horrible symptom she has. What bothers me is that I also have a lot of the same irritating pregnancy symptoms, but when I try to sympathize she pulls the, "oh just wait until you're at weeks," card as if it's some strange competition. So I dropped the sympathy angle and decided to just send her positive messages instead. But she totally sidesteps my attempts at positivity or my suggestions and complains about something else. For example, if I suggested a medicine I took for heartburn, she'd reply, "No, I'll just throw it up." If I tried to suggest that she take some time off work because she's clearly unhappy, she'd reply, "I can't, I don't have enough sick days." Which is fair, I guess, but it gets old very quick being shot down over and over. She ignores all my upbeat messages about staying strong and that she's almost there and that she can do it, and replies with, "I'm miserable," instead. What pushed me over the edge is she also stopped asking me about my pregnancy completely. Never checks in with me, never asks about my baby, and when I try to share anything positive she hardly acknowledges it. I went from feeling like we were in this together to feeling like she is the only pregnant one. I finally snapped when she texted me about her swollen ankles for the 20th time and said that I'm already anxious enough with my own due date creeping up and that her negativity is ruining my own pregnancy. I told her that I'm not feeling great either, but I'm not sending her lists of ailments every morning, and I suggested she start venting to her husband instead. I obviously hurt her feelings. She read it and hasn't spoken to me since. I feel completely justified, but my husband said I shouldn't have said anything, that she's clearly struggling more, and that I should just basically treat her with pity because she's so unhappy. I think she's a total downer and I don't need that energy weighing me down, but now I'm wondering if I'm being insensitive because she is so close to giving birth and clearly having more complications than I am. Stories number 19. Aita for breaking up with my boyfriend because he won't stop using his iPad during family events. Okay, so buckle up because this is a mess. I, 19F, have been dating my boyfriend, 20M, for like a year now and he's cool in most ways, but there's one huge thing that's driving me crazy. His iPad is surgically attached to him. I can't even go through a family dinner or holiday without him staring at that thing the whole time. Whether he's texting, gaming, or watching Netflix, I just can't get his attention. I've talked to him about it so many times. I've asked, begged, even cried asking him to put it down just for a little while. I just want him to be present when we're at family events. But he always has an excuse like, "I'm catching up on work," or "I'm watching something important," or "I'll stop in a sec." And honestly, I'm just so done with it. So last weekend, my grandma, ADF, was having her birthday party and this was a big deal. She's getting old and I didn't know how many more birthdays we'd get to have with her. I told him 500 times, "Please, just leave the iPad at home for this, I want you to show up for me and my family." He promised he would. But the second we walk in, guess what happens? The iPad comes out, headphones go in, and he's just staring at it like he's in a whole other world. I was like, "Are you serious?" At first, I tried to be chill about it. I was like, "Hey, can you please just put it down for dinner?" And he goes, "I'll be done soon." But he didn't stop. Then I asked again, "Can you please pay attention? My grandma's right there, and you're acting like you're somewhere else." And he just kept scrolling like I wasn't even there. By this point, I was so mad, boiling. I was tired of feeling like I don't matter more than his stupid iPad. So, in front of everyone, yes, in front of everyone, I snapped. I told him, "If you care so little about me and my family, then you can just leave." And what does he do? He just stands up, shrugs, says, "Whatever," and walks out. Just straight up walked out. I was standing there, shaking with embarrassment and anger, in front of my whole family, trying not to lose it. After he left, I was a mess. My family was all awkward and didn't know what to say, and my mom was like, "Why couldn't you just let it go? It's just an iPad, it's not that big of a deal." But to me, it was. It wasn't about the iPad, it was about him constantly choosing it over me, over my family, over being part of the moment. And that's when I realized, I deserve better than that. Now I'm kinda questioning everything. Some of my friends think I overreacted, that it was just an iPad and I should have let it go, but I'm honestly just done. I'm tired of feeling like second place. So, AITA for breaking up with him just because he wouldn't stop using his iPad at a family event? Or did I blow it and make a huge mistake? Update, okay, wow. First of all, I want to thank everyone for the overwhelming responses. I've been reading through all the comments and trying to process everything. So, after I posted, I did what I should have done a lot sooner, I actually talked to my boyfriend. I know, it sounds like I should have done that before. But after everything went down at my grandma's birthday party, I was so hurt and embarrassed that I just didn't want to speak to him at all. He ended up calling me that night, and I didn't pick up. He left me a message asking why I overreacted, and why I was being so dramatic, which, honestly, made me even angrier. The next day, I finally agreed to meet up and talk. He apologized for the way he acted at my grandma's party, But it honestly felt like an apology with no real understanding of why it bothered me so much. He said, "I didn't realize it was that big of a deal." He then told me he thought I was being too controlling and that I had no right to tell him what to do with his time. He said the iPad was his escape, and he didn't see why I couldn't just accept it. We ended up having a long conversation where I tried to explain that it wasn't about the iPad, it was about the lack of respect. I told him that family events are important to me and that it hurt to feel invisible every time we were together. I also told him that it wasn't just about that one incident, but it was a pattern. His response? He didn't get it. He said, "If you can't accept me as I am, then maybe we're not right for each other." So I broke up with him for real. I think I did the right thing. I can't keep chasing after someone who doesn't prioritize me, especially over something like an iPad. Since the breakup, I've been getting some mixed reactions from my family. Some of them think I made the right choice, and others feel like I was too harsh. My best friend says I dodged a bullet, and I'm starting to feel like she's right. Anyway, thanks for all the advice and encouragement. I feel a weight off my chest, even though it's tough. We'll see what happens next, but for now, I'm just focused on doing what's best for me. Thanks again, Reddit. I'm doing okay. Stories number 20. Lyft driver took my intoxicated friend on a 4-hour, 230-mile ride when she requested to go 20 minutes home. Last night in Houston, my friend was too drunk on a night out, called an Uber home. She was completely blacked out, but her home address was put as the destination. I was drunk myself and fell asleep in my own Uber and went inside. I feel horrible for not watching her location. She woke up at home, but when she checked her Lyft trip history, she saw the driver took her to a random beach 2 hours away, then drove back to the middle of the Houston and dropped her off downtown on the side of the road at 3 a.m., where she ordered another Lyft, which took her home. What the fuck? Lyft refunded her $90 on the $369 trip and said they can't help further. Advice on where to go from here. At no point did the driver even head in the direction of her house. She lives due north from downtown. He went straight south. This guy needs to be off the app permanently. Stories number 21. I am completely heartbroken. So my husband just told me he booked a flight to go golfing in a few weeks by his best friends. He never once talked to me about the dates or his plans before he booked. We have been together almost 21 years, married for 15 next weekish. My husband just spent 5 days away over Labor Day while I stayed behind with our 13 years. He has never done anything like this before. For context, he is incredibly cheap. We have not gone away for even a night in years, even with the kids. I wanted to get Disney tickets this summer, but he said no. No matter what I spend, he always has an issue with it. Every time I go grocery shopping, he almost always complains about how much I spend, even though it is well within the allowance. The last time we went out to eat was November 2023, with the 13yo. I've asked so many times to go out to dinner or something, but we never do. Recently in an argument, I brought it up again and he said that he doesn't like going out to eat, so why would he do it? I should consider the time we spend on the weekends cleaning the house and doing yard work as spending time together. I don't work, and have no friends or family. I feel this is the final straw. I feel neglected, and he says that's not it. He has an unhealthy relationship with money and is always stressing over it. We don't struggle and live comfortably, but he was laid off years ago and took him 9 months to find work, and since he has been overly crazy about money. Our oldest is 24 and she says he has caused her so much anxiety about money she is always worried about running out of it. He stresses about spending $5 to rent a movie. He's bothered that I want to pay for a movie service that costs $8 a month. Money is such a huge issue in our marriage. He always says we are broke. The kids have been around this and it's so unhealthy for them to worry about finances. When our oldest was in middle and high school, she suffered drug-resistant depression and had a failed suicide attempt. His counselor even then told him to stop talking about money, but he couldn't. We have not had a date night in years. He has attempted a few. My birthday was last month and we were gonna go out, but we ended up shopping and working on a Halloween project together instead, which I was fine with. But the attempts are few and far between. Our 13yo has had anxiety and depression since COVID. She is incredibly smart but has no drive or ambition and misses too much school and never does homework and lies about her homework. So it's an absolute nightmare dealing with that stress. I never get away from it. He typically works 60 hours a week, so most of that burden falls on me. The stress caused me to lose 20 pounds last May just trying to be sure she passed 7th grade. I have voiced and even wrote him a 13-page letter last spring on how I needed more from him. He even said he wouldn't want his daughters to have a husband like himself in their life and he would have a real problem with it if our oldest was marrying someone that has done some of the things he has done to me. He is not physically abusive in any way but has said some hurtful things out of spite over the years he knows was wrong. I feel like I need to show my girls a good example, and how can I do that staying married to him? He has continued to ignore most of my needs of quality time and a chance to check out once in a while. My heart is breaking into a million pieces right now. I just kicked him out and I'm not sure I made the right decision. Update. My 45 husband, 47, booked a vacation for himself behind my back after we had discussed the trip and decided to book it anyway, and told me days after the fact that he booked it. My husband was kneed up coming home to help with hurricane prep. He was supposed to only help and stay that night, but then as things got more real he stayed as I needed help preparing the house and yard for the storm. Then we talked about evacuating and booked a hotel some 3 hours away, but as the storm shifted south we decided to stay put. He stayed during the storm and after. We ended up doing a lot of talking. But he would not cancel the trip. I told him he should be begging for my forgiveness, but it seemed like it was me that was fighting for this marriage. He had that trip 2 months ago where he went alone and had no responsibilities and no one to see to and had a lot of fun. He just wanted to feel that again. I told him if he didn't cancel the trip the marriage was over. I told him he can't have his cake and do it too. I would never be able to get away doing something like this. Not would I try. I don't understand why this trip is so important. He has been love bombing me and promised he would change and start treating me to vacations and date nights. There had been some issues in the past that I forgave and he feels like I still can't forgive him for it. Then I don't understand why he would add to the problem. It sucks when you love someone so much and they hurt you like this. I don't want my marriage to be over. But he literally told me he would put me first after his trip. Why can't I be a stronger person and know that there is someone out there that will cherish me and love me the way I deserve? My daughter, 13, sent him a text explaining her feelings and basically told him he chose this trip over his family. He left Friday and he comes home today. All of his stuff is packed up and out of the house in his truck. Most he packed himself on Friday before the trip. He did miss his flight trying to convince me I was making a bigger deal out of this than it needed to be. I texted his brothers, sister-in-law and the friend he is going to basically saying we are over and the circumstances leading to it. Also explained the history of how he spent so date nights ever and didn't do anything. Got our 15-year anniversary that was almost a month ago. He told me no one took his side, which I told him would be the case. No one in our life would treat their spouse like this. So I'm so torn as to whether I am going to let him stay tonight or not. Heartache sucks. Stories number 22. Restaurant employee stole my wallet. This week I went to dinner with a friend and upon leaving, I left my wallet, which was also attached to my car keys, on the table. I went back to the restaurant less than 5 minutes after initially leaving to grab them, but they were not on the table. After checking my car again I decided to use the Apple AirTag that I had in my wallet to track it. It brought me back into the restaurant and after looking around for a bit, I found my wallet and keys in the bathroom garbage, but my wallet was completely emptied. Please note I did not use the restroom while in the establishment. I went to my waiter to let him know that I found my wallet, but it was empty, and we were able to check the camera and find that the hostess at the restaurant grabbed my wallet off the table and went directly into the bathroom. I approached the hostess and asked if she would give me my stuff back and she denied that it was her, so I called the police, and in the time that I called the police she grabbed her purse and left the restaurant. I filed a police report and they do have all of her information from her application because she was new. I also learned that her daughter works there. While filing the police report before I was able to shut off my card, she went on a spending spree, spending almost $400. Come to find out this woman has multiple fraud and theft charges in her past and warrants out for her arrest in this state. I am wondering if there's any case for negligence of the establishment for hiring someone with a history of theft who then proceeded to steal my items and get away. So far I have had to pay for a new ID and a new medical marijuana ID as she stole both of them. Stories number 23. Update on Asian buffet. You might recall I posted here a while back about me and my guy's favorite Chinese place. We eat there frequently, like 3 or 4 times a month. The owner is Asian, second-generation Asian American, and it's a place she's run for 25 years with her family. It's her life and she loves what she does. What I posted was about the irate boomers who've demanded a Chinese buffet meal at her restaurant. They don't believe her when she's never offered a buffet, and get mad at her for their own inability to read the damn menu. So she put up a sign that says in big letters "No buffet here." Here's the update. Last Friday we stopped in, were greeted by her daughter, and she waved from the kitchen door. A few minutes later, after we ordered, she came to our booth and asked if she could sit with us for a bit. What's been happening is that she's noticed an increase in hostility by customers, boomers, mostly, towards her servers and herself. Her serving staff are all family and most are ESL and don't speak perfect English. Customers have been poking fun and disrespectful. Yes, even with the big 11 by 14 laminated sign at eye level on the front door, boomers still get shitty when they're told there is no buffet served here. One of the most recent comments was, "All you Chinese people have buffets, so why not here?" The worst part is that recently someone, or more than one person, has been calling the county health department to complain about her restaurant. Her scores are on the county's compliance section of their website, and she's always had perfect scores. Yet someone has called 3 times to complain about live animals being kept in the kitchen and butchered for food. Rabbits mostly, but someone claimed she had cats, too. The health department is obligated to check out the complaints, but they know her. They know the complaints are harassment, and they close them out each time. Guys, she's actually becoming afraid for her business. Her staff is experiencing uncivilized behavior that they didn't have before. She's afraid tariffs will hurt her budgets. She says she's going to stay put and stay strong. Edit, thank you for your outpouring of support. I have shared the name of the restaurant with some folks in the area, but please understand I'm hesitant to share it publicly on this thread due to a chance of negative Google review brigading. For those wishing to help, I suggest this: please choose your local, family-owned places over corporate or franchise restaurants, especially if they're owned by a person who may be facing discrimination or harassment due to race or ethnicity. Post reviews, talk about them on your socials, share good recommendations with family and friends. Be kind and share kindness. Stories number 24. Spouse wants 100% custody, moving into my home, child support and alimony. My spouse and I were married abroad. She moved to the US in November 2022. She started working at a bank in February 2023. In June of 2023, she moved out of the house as she did not want to contribute towards taking care of the household bills. As I wanted the marriage to work, I continued seeing her after the separation. While on separation, she fell pregnant. She then decided to cut all lines of communication with me. Unknown to me, she gave birth in March 2024. She didn't even have my name on the birth certificate. That was about the same time I had decided to file for divorce as we had been separated for more than the required 6 months in Maryland. In her counter-complaint, she is requesting 100% custody of the child. Parentage has already been proved by DNA test, 99.99% my child. She is also requesting to move into my house since she has a minor child. On top of that, she is asking for alimony and a share of my retirement and splitting of property. I may be making about $30,000 more than her. I have no criminal record or complaint of abuse. Can she really get 100% custody? I want 50-50 custody as ours is a high-conflict divorce. Court mediation failed as she wanted me to have 2 hours supervised visitation in her home per month. Also, I am the only one on the title of the house. There is really no equity as I have only had the house for 2 years plus I have a second mortgage on it. Could she prevail in having me kicked out of the house even after she abandoned it a year and a half ago? After the separation I got depressed and ended up losing my job. Counseling helped me get back up, started working and filed for divorce. I am therefore not in a position to afford a lawyer. I would appreciate your thoughts on my case. Stories number 25. Had to send an urgent package to my nephew. A little thing that happened today, that made me oddly grateful and glad to be alive. A few weeks ago, my 7-year-old nephew and his mom, my sister, came and helped me moving. He brought along his little toolkit and a Dragon Ball Z comic book. He is just learning to read. He forgot both his toolkit and his comic, and today my sister asked me to please urgently send the comic to their house, about an hour away, because my nephew had borrowed it from the library and he couldn't get another book as long as the previous one hadn't been returned. I went to the post office and sent it pretty much immediately, and somehow this whole thing made me really happy, because I find it just adorable in its entirety. Had to send an urgent package containing a Dragon Ball Z comic to my 7-year-old nephew today. Stories number 26. Cheat on your wife with mine. I will burn your life to the ground. Way back in the early 2000s, I began to suspect that my wife was up to something. Our 2 kids were about 4 and 6, still young, but not so young they couldn't tell you something about what had happened in their day. They started talking a lot about staying with my wife's parents during the day, which wasn't really that strange in and of itself, but since they lived about 90 minutes away, doing so 2 or 3 times a week seemed a bit much. That was basically every day she wasn't working at her part-time job. When I asked her about it, she denied it, but was never a good liar. So, I started tracking the mileage on her car and sure enough, she was driving an extra 400 or so miles per week. I knew some shit was going on. Then one day I sat down at the computer and she had left a sticky note with her AOL password written on it next to the keyboard. I could not resist and logged in to read her emails and saw a few email exchanges between her and her college BFF where they discussed how my wife was regularly fucking one of her ex-BFs from high school. No mention of details about him other than my wife also talking shit about his wife making fun of how she'd gotten fat after having kids. Anyway, I printed out these email exchanges and stashed them. I still needed to know the details, so I called a friend who was a cop and he suggested I call a guy he knew that had left the force to become a PI. Ron was great. I paid his retainer and gave him the emails and what little I knew about my wife's activities and he figured out exactly what she was doing. His report detailed with photos and times, dates, locations all about how she would take the kids to her parents, then go meet this guy for lunch. Then they'd go to a dumpy motel for a few hours, after which she'd pick up the kids and return home. At this point, I hired a divorce lawyer. My parents cheated on each other and the fallout absolutely fucked mine and my siblings' childhood. It was something that was totally unacceptable. I also asked Ron to find out what he could about this guy. Ron absolutely came through. I learned his name, Bob, that he was married and had 3 kids. I also found out that he worked as a VP of sales for his father-in-law's business. At this point, I had my lawyer draw up the divorce papers. I also asked Ron for a couple more copies of his report and one more thing I wanted him to do for me. On the same day I had my wife served with the divorce papers at her work, I had Ron meet with this guy's wife and show her everything he'd found out. She seemed nice and I figured that she deserved to know what her dear hubby was up to. What she did with that information was up to her. While the information about my wife's infidelity didn't really matter in my divorce proceedings, Bob's wife did a real number on him. According to the publicly available court documents from the divorce and other related proceedings, she cleaned out their joint account, took the kids and left. As soon as her dad found out what he'd done, Bob was fired and since her parents actually owned the house where Bob and his wife lived, he also got evicted. Their divorce was ugly. Lots of fighting in, and evidently out of, court. I guess Bob went to the house and started arguing with his wife and it escalated to the point that her brother stepped in and Bob got his nose broken. There were restraining orders, a few more incidents with police reports, criminal charges, jail time and so on. I can't find Bob on the internet anywhere these days. Last I heard, he'd left the state and his ex-wife did okay. She went to work at her dad's company and took over after he retired. As for me, my ex and I got along well enough. I didn't engage with her on anything that wasn't related to the kids and now that they're both adults, I don't talk to her at all anymore. I don't hate her or anything, but I only care in the context that she is my kids' mom and is important to them, nothing beyond that. Stories number 27. AIO for not going with my husband to visit his family on Thanksgiving. Would I be in the wrong if I chose not to go to Thanksgiving with my husband and his family out of state? I'm still deeply hurt by 2 incidents. First, he didn't attend my dad's funeral, and second, he backed out of a family vacation last minute after my daughter and I had already packed and were waiting in the car. These moments left me feeling disappointed and unsupported, especially the funeral. Now, with Thanksgiving approaching, I find myself struggling to move past these feelings. I know it might be seen as petty or immature to hold on to this, but I'm tired of always being the one to let it go and move on. It feels like my feelings are constantly overlooked. He wants me to join him in Missouri for Thanksgiving with his family, but I just don't feel like I can right now. Would I be in the wrong for staying behind? Stories number 28. Every adult in our town vanished. 12 days after their disappearance, we started to get sick. We were arguing about early college applications. Mom, swaying slightly with her 4th glass of wine, rolled her eyes. You're being ridiculous, Emma, she said. You're 15. Didn't you want to be a ballerina? Mom, her lip twitched. You avoided joining your siblings for Thanksgiving at Aunt Carmel's, so you're going to help me. Help you what? Drink yourself sober. She smiled. You won't like the taste of alcohol, honey. Something in me snapped. I lunged for her glass, but before I could grab it, she blinked out of existence, her drink shattering on the floor. For a moment, I thought I was responsible, before a crash came from outside. It wasn't just my mother. My neighbor, Harry Sutton, was shouting for his dad. Down the street, screams ignited, cars crashing into each other. Every adult, every person over 18, was gone. I eventually found my siblings. Dad had been driving, and with him vanishing, the car flipped, reducing them to red staining the sidewalk. For a while, there was chaos. Day 1, I went shopping on my own, stocking up on ramen and soda. By day 12, our power was out, and 2 senior boys, Henry and Dalton, had taken over my downstairs. They were nice, offering me their share of food. I woke up to them coughing. I headed downstairs, covering my mouth with a soiled pair of pajama pants, stepping straight into sticky red pooling across Mom's prized rug. Henry lay on his back, choking on bubbling scarlet dribbling down his chin. Dalton was vomiting in the sink, his trembling body convulsing, lumps of fleshy red splattered on the floor. Henry's face looked sharper, paler, his eyes sunken, ears pointier. Then, whatever this was, slammed into me. My brain was suddenly on fire. I dropped to my knees, coughing, red filling my mouth. My limbs contorted, my head swimming. The stench of peppermint seeping into my nose. Bells rang loud and invasive in my ears. A voice boomed in my skull, "Don't worry, children. The transformation is painful, but only if your body rejects it. Right now, your human tissue is converting to elf tissue. I need at least 500 of you to compete with this year's demand. Your parents will make fine meat scraps for my reindeer." The voice laughed, and I screamed, my body contorting. All I could think about was my siblings, their decomposing corpses still stuck in the wreck of Dad's car. Did this thing work on the dead too? When my body lurched onto its side, and I choked up something wet and slimy, the floorboards creaked behind me. Henry and Dalton stood. They didn't speak. They just walked out of the door, straight into a blizzard, stardust dripping from them. I waited for my body to twist, just like theirs. But I kept bleeding, all over myself, sticking my hair to my neck. My eyes flickered, Santa's laugh bouncing in my skull. I was going to become an elf too, right? Stories number 29. I'm an American, and I'm trying to help my 78-year-old Dutch friend living in Canada and born in Rotterdam. She was born 1946. Her family landed in Canada July 1954. Her Dutch passport has been expired since the 70s. She would like to renew it. She still has the expired passport and her landed immigrant card. We couldn't find information on whether she still needs to submit a birth certificate. And anyway, not sure how easy it would be to get one. Keep getting dead ends online. Any help is appreciated. Thank you. Edit, the embassy was extremely helpful. They confirmed there's no need for a birth certificate in this situation and the passport renewal will go like any other. Passport renewal. Thank you all for your help and insights. Stories number 30. I nearly met myself. Alright. This happened about 2 months ago, and I haven't stopped thinking about it. After stumbling across these glitch in the Matrix videos that keep coming up on YouTube, I thought I'd share it with you all. I've got no explanation, maybe one of you does. I need to know if anyone else has ever had something like this happen. I work a pretty boring 9-to-5 job in a mid-sized office building. Every day, I go to the same coffee shop across the street around 2 p.m. for my caffeine fix. I'm such a regular that the barista, Sam, automatically starts making my order when he sees me in line. On this particular day, I left my office a little later than usual, around 2:15. When I reached the door in the lobby, I realized I'd left my keycard on my desk on the other side of the building. But, that was no problem, the secretary, Sarah, signed me out on paper. This happens all the time. As I crossed the street and approached the coffee shop, I saw myself. Me, wearing the same clothes, same bag, same everything. Standing at the counter inside, chatting with Sam. I froze. My heart was racing, but my brain was like, no, you're imagining this. Maybe it's someone who just looks like you. But then this other me turned slightly, and I got a perfect look at their face. It was my face. Down to the tiny birthmark I have under one eye. I panicked. I turned around and walked back across the street without going inside. My hands were shaking. I kept telling myself it wasn't real, that I must have been overtired or something. But here's the thing, when I got back to my desk and looked in my bag, the coffee cup was there. The exact same coffee I was planning to order, with my name written on it in Sam's handwriting. I never went into the shop. I never bought the coffee. But there it was, hot and fresh like I just picked it up. I looked up at the clock, and the time was still 2:15, the usual time I'd get back after heading over and grabbing my coffee. But I'd definitely been outside for longer than a minute. It was like my timeline diverged. One version of me had split away at 2 p.m. and gone to grab the coffee, while I had stayed behind. And then when returning to the building, our timelines had merged again. Even scarier than this thought, was which one had I been at that time? Was I the original me, or was I some kind of duplicate for that time? I spent the rest of my work day just feeling very off about the whole thing. I didn't even drink the coffee. It got me to wondering about the stories of shapeshifters, or doppelgangers I'd heard in the past, and I had to wonder if this is where some of those came from. Maybe two timelines split, or converge and you can be two places at once for a short time. I wonder how many times this sort of thing happens without you noticing. I haven't told anyone at work because, let's be real, they'd think I'm insane. But the secretary at the office does remember me heading out, and she remembers me having forgotten my keycard. But she says it happened at 2, and it even says so on the log where she signed me out. I've gone back to the coffee shop since, and everything's been normal. Though weirdly enough, Sam didn't remember me coming. The next day when I went to grab my coffee, he asked if I'd been off sick the day before. So, if he never gave me a coffee that day, where did the coffee in my bag come from? Some parallel universe that collided with this one for a split second? How can him and Sarah remember things so differently? Which one of these is even real? I don't know. But I still have the cup. I wrote on it in red marker, this came from nowhere. It's in my kitchen cupboard now. I keep checking on it, just to remind myself that I didn't imagine the whole thing. What the hell happened? Any ideas? Well, that sure is a spooky one. Kind of like my experience with my dad and the double moon. Strange that other people's memories can be affected or altered by these events. Stories number 31. I'm not happy with my career and feel like doors are closing. I'm 31 will be 32 in 4 months. I work in an international elementary school in Japan. I did not have the necessary qualifications but they hired me because they liked me and they also were in a severe shortage due to corona. At the time 2 years ago I thought this job would be a big opportunity for me. Now I'm just stuck in it and I hate it. I speak Japanese well but transitioning into a different field is very difficult here. Considering the prospect of moving home is very daunting. I have a degree in English literature, LOL, and switching careers probably will involve going back to school after which I will be at least 34 years old. I'm just very terrified and like every day I wait to do something my odds get less and less, I'm paralyzed. I also feel like, even if I do make a successful career change who even gives a shit, I'll be 34, I'm already balding and single and overweight, what's it even for? I'm just kinda pissed off and unhappy. Stories number 32. My husband just told me he's asexual. My husband, 40, has never really pushed me, 38, for sex, that's something that I was originally drawn to when we first started dating. But lately it has become less and less. I know this is something that tends to happen in most relationships, but after a long talk about our sex life, he admitted that he's asexual and has no desire for sex at all and never really has. He's been going to therapy for some time and discussing this, and it's not a total shock to me but it makes me feel completely undesirable. He says that he's attracted to me and finds me beautiful but he never initiates sex. He loves to cuddle and kiss but anything further that and he completely pulls away. The entire situation has left me feeling unattractive, unwanted, and kind of stuck in a marriage to a man who I love more than anything and am attracted to more than anyone. We still have sex but now it feels like I'm forcing him to do it, even though I know he's just trying to speak my love language and fulfill my needs and wants. Really it feels like he never wanted sex with me and I've just been forcing myself on him for decades. Has anyone ever gone through this? I feel alone and honestly, I'm just hoping that someone in a similar situation can offer some advice. I'm lost. Edit. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for their kind words and honesty. A lot of the comments have really made feel a lot better about the entire situation. Obviously this is still something he and I have to work out but I'm so happy I got the responses from you guys. Thank you all for responding. Stories number 33. My mom unknowingly ate crab rangoon for several months. I know your first thought when you read the title is, okay troll, your mom ate crab rangoon, so what? Well let me explain. A store that I worked at as a teen had a grab and go section with crab rangoon. I love crab rangoon, and sometimes I would buy a few at the end of my shift to eat. Here's the problem though. I am technically not allowed to eat crab rangoon due to my religion, which doesn't condone eating pork, shrimp, and of course crab, among other things. I was always curious to eat some of the forbidden food my religion talked about, like the saying goes, you always want you can't have. So when I was finally making my own money and had easy access to it, I took the chance. At this point I had my license already but I didn't have a car, so my mom would pick me up from work. Because of this, I would put the crab rangoon in my backpack. But one day I screwed up. My mom had me run errands for her after my shift, and I bought crab rangoon too. But me not thinking, I forgot to put the crab rangoon in my backpack, so it ended up in the trunk with the other things I got from my mom. My mom went to the trunk to look for something, and I guess the box of crab rangoon happened to be peeking out of the bag, because my mom said, "Honey, you could have asked if I wanted, wait, that crab you're eating." My heart skipped a beat because my mom is one of those super religious people who takes her beliefs seriously, especially when it comes to food. For example, I have a family member who left the religion and is now atheist. Our whole extended family decided to have a get-together at a restaurant, and when my mom saw that family member order a meal which had pork, she was livid. The rest of the evening was spent with everyone awkwardly listening to my mom go back and forth with the family member. My mom telling her that God was ashamed of her and that she shamelessly threw away everything her parents raised her to be. When I thought of that incident, I knew that my mom would never let me live it down, because to this day she still talks about that family member. So with my quick, but also bad thinking, I did something I truly regret. I lied and said, "Of course not, Mom. This is vegetarian crab rangoon." When she heard this she calmed down, and not only did she eat it, she enjoyed it, so much so that from that point forward, almost every time she would pick me up from work, she would ask me to buy it. I felt so bad from the very beginning for what I was doing, but after a couple of months, I knew I really could not let this keep happening. So I lied again and said that they weren't selling the vegetarian ones anymore. Again, I have always felt so terrible for what I did, and I hope God forgives me. I don't know if I should come clean to my mom and tell her that I pretty much tricked her. Edit, thanks for the replies. After reading them, I don't think I will tell her. Ironically, apart from the religious stuff, my mom and I are quite close, so I feel like if I told her this, it would probably damage our relationship. Some people have asked what religion I am. I'm SDA. And yes, I can eat fish. I have heard people who are not usually SDA, say that all SDAs are vegan, and I can tell you that is not accurate. It really varies by family. I would say I'm lucky, because my family personally doesn't mind eating fish and chicken, although my mom sometimes contemplates being vegan, but there are many families I know that are strictly vegan. SDAs pretty much base their diet on Leviticus 11. I'm not going to bore you by explaining it, but if you skim the chapter, that will give you a glimpse of the food SDAs consider good, and what they consider as bad. Also, my story was not a recent incident, it was several years ago. Hope that clears some things up. Stories number 34. My husband, 23M, 24F, just told me he doesn't want to live in my hometown and I thought about divorce. My husband 23M and I 24F have been married for a year and 8 months. He is in the army and we met when he was stationed in my hometown. He's originally from Mississippi. Before we got married I knew that marrying someone in the army would mean moving around often and far from my family, and I was okay with that. We had talked about where we would like to settle after he was done with his army career. He said he didn't plan on making it a career and wanted to get out at some point. I said I would like to settle in my hometown where we met because in my family we are very close and my sister just had my first nephew. And I don't want to be just a stranger that he only sees once a year, or our future kids to not know their grandparents. In my family we get together often for parties, and it's across the border from Mexico, which is very important for me since half of my family is there. In his case he rarely sees his family. He comes from a really small town and he only has his mom, stepdad, his sister, his brother, the wife and about 5 nephews and nieces that he doesn't even see. He never watched them grown up and isn't close to his family like I am. So he said he wouldn't like to live in his hometown, but he wasn't sure about mine either. He said there was a possibility for us to move to mine, but he wasn't sure yet. All he knew is that he wanted to stay in Texas. Fast forward to now, we live in Tennessee and had an argument because last year was the first Christmas since we had moved away from my hometown, and it was also the first year I didn't spend with my family. We spent it with his family and it triggered my depression. We had agreed that next Christmas we would visit my family. This Christmas is very important to me for 2 reasons. The first is that it's my nephew/godson's first Christmas, and it is also the first Christmas that my parents are divorced, and I wanted to be there for my mom, because it was gonna feel very lonely for her without me or my dad there like every year. But now he told me that because he was doing school online and the tickets were about $600 for the both of us, that we shouldn't go and spend it with his family. Instead, 6-hour drive to his parents' house. My family had told us to not spend money on gifts and to just use that money for the tickets, but he said no. He doesn't buy the gifts either way. I do with the money I saved up before I quit my job. All that led to him saying he wanted to talk about something he had put off for a while, and then he told me he never planned on moving to my hometown and that he wanted to make a career out of the army. He doesn't like the base in my hometown, so that's not an option for him. I spent the whole day yesterday crying because I don't see myself having kids in any place other than my hometown, which he doesn't want to live in. I don't know what to do. I love him and I don't want to get a divorce. He said we could move closer, 9 hours away, which is not enough for me. I just don't know if I'm an asshole for thinking about divorcing him. In our talk he apologized for how he has me living my life RN in a city where I don't know anyone and him being too busy with work or school that he rarely pays any attention to me. Can someone give me any advice on what to do? Stories number 35. Aita for not wanting to spend another holiday with my husband's ex-wife. Advice needed. I, 36F, have been with my husband Jake, 47M, for 6 years, married for 4. He has a daughter, Jenna, 19F, with his ex-wife Susan. Jake and Susan's marriage began deteriorating during the pregnancy. They were separated by Jenna's first birthday, divorced before her second. They don't have a friendly relationship. They're cordial for Jenna and polite to one another, but they never just chat for the sake of it, and there is zero warmth in any of their interactions. Despite this, they both agreed that they never wanted their daughter to have to choose between them for the big holidays, and so they've been spending every Thanksgiving and Christmas together for the last 19 years, with me joining the last 4. It's fine. It's very awkward and feels like something everyone is just trying to get through, but it's uneventful. There's no drama or anything crazy, but it's not fun or festive either. I was under the impression that this would end when Jenna reached adulthood, since Jake complains about it every year, but last year was Jenna's first year home from college, so he wanted everything to be normal. I'm pretty close with Jenna, and last year, after we left Susan's on Christmas Day, Jenna texted me joking about how dull the evening was and then said she didn't know why they were still keeping this up. And I was like, please tell your dad, because he's going to insist on it for your sake until you do. And she said she would, and we started talking about other things, and it didn't come up again until this year. Jenna's spending Thanksgiving with her new friend's family this year, so luckily it's just the one holiday to deal with this year. We were texting last month while she was starting to make plans to come home for Christmas and brought up how she wasn't looking forward to another Christmas, and I encouraged her again to tell her dad how she felt. She brought it up with both of her parents and said she would do Christmas Eve with one and Christmas with the other. Great. At some point, she mentioned to her mother that I had encouraged her to talk to her parents, and now Susan has decided that I manipulated Jenna to get what I want, which I did want this, but I don't feel I manipulated anyone, and is blowing up Jake's phone. This is the most they've spoken in years, and Jake is not quite but almost agreeing with her, i.e., well, I know how you didn't like going. Maybe Jenna was just reading how you felt, which makes me feel like I'm going crazy. But I just feel weird and guilty now, and I need some outside opinions. Stories number 36. Aita for refusing to go to Thanksgiving because of my mom's boyfriend? Not the a-hole. My mom Lisa, 56F, and I, 17F, have a rocky relationship. I'm close with my older brothers, Max, 35M, and Alex, 30M, but we have different dads. My parents divorced when I was 3, and I've never had a stable father figure. My mom remarried when I was 4 to a man who was emotionally abusive and caused me a lot of trauma. They divorced 3 years ago, which was a huge relief for me. A few months ago, my mom started dating again. Her first boyfriend, Bobby, was nice, but she broke it off quickly, saying she never really liked him. Then she started dating her current boyfriend, Mike, about 2 months ago. The first time I met him, he handed me the keys to my first car, a car I paid $2,000 for, with the rest from my mom and grandma. It felt weird and awkward, like he was trying to act like a dad. Mike didn't make a good impression on my family either. At Max's recent 35th birthday brunch, Mike spent the whole time talking about himself and his kids, ignoring Max entirely. My mom spends most of her time at Mike's house now, leaving me to cook and grocery shop for myself. I've told her I'm not ready to get to know him because of my trauma from past father figures, but she calls me selfish, even though I've been in therapy since I was 8. Now, my mom and Mike are hosting Thanksgiving, but Max and his family aren't coming because they don't like Mike. I told my mom I'd rather spend the day with Max and his kids, and she accused me of being selfish and disrespectful. I've always wanted a good stable family, and spending Thanksgiving with a man I barely know and his children is not my ideal scenario. Especially after spending everything Thanksgiving as a child with my crappy stepdad. Stories number 37. Just found out my daughter's best friend's dad is a sex offender. So I, 31F, don't want to go into too much details for brevity's sake. But my daughter is 9 and we found out last night that her best friend's dad is a sex offender. He slept with a 15-year-old when he was 27 at the time. And I just want advice on what to tell her about why she can't go over to their house anymore. Nothing has happened to her, by the way. She's been briefed on things to watch out for and tell us numerous times, and we've asked her since finding out this information. I obviously can't tell her what happened and why, but she spends every day she can with this friend and she isn't going to be distracted or dissuaded with vague answers for long. Edit. I forgot to mention he also has a domestic violence charge from this year that makes me quite uncomfortable. Edit 2. So as of now my plan is to make my home more inviting and take the girls out to parks and things more often to get them to want to come to our place more often. Me and my husband have decided we are not giving her details to protect their friendship and her friend's reputation at school because I can't guarantee she won't say anything to her friends about this. I'm still unsure about what I'm actually going to say, but a discussion is planned with the girl's mother who is divorced from her father and we will go from there after we have that discussion. I will update further if anything of note happens, I suppose. And for rude commenters, I'm just ignoring those I don't care. Probably final update. So firstly, thank you everyone who left kind comments, and even if you didn't agree with me, I appreciate the people who did so without being rude or aggressive. This is a harder choice for me than a lot of you seem to think it should be, but I'm not going off of pure emotion or anger. I'm trying to do right by my kid and her friend while protecting them both. That being said, we have talked to both the mother and father, and with some help of a kind Redditor I have discovered more about his status as a sex offender. He is not currently under any restrictions from being around children, so he has broken no laws. Both parents parroted the same story and they aren't on the best of terms since the divorce, so do with that information what you will. These were apparently false allegations to a point. The victim was infatuated with him and lied about sexual acts that did not occur. The only thing he admits is that he did send her a slightly suggestive text message after prompting from her for a while that she didn't respond to. There were others in his same profession with allegations and he presumes they were making him the example. She had apparently taken him to court once and it was thrown out for insufficient evidence. She then came back with better evidence and he had no jury trial, it was only the judge's choice. According to him, had it been a jury it would have been thrown out because the evidence was flimsy and basically a he said she said. In regards to the domestic violence case, the mother didn't comment on it more than saying he was no danger to the kids whatsoever, and the father said it was a restraining order placed on him because she was advised to do this by her lawyer to gain full custody. All this to say, I think the lesson is that almost everyone jumped to conclusions about this, including me, without finding out the story more clearly. Especially me. I don't know yet what rules and restrictions will be placed because we are letting the information settle. I know this will make a lot of people angry, but people get falsely accused all the time and we don't acknowledge that enough probably. To be safe, we aren't going to have sleepovers and we will be having conversations with our daughter again, drilling it in to never be alone with any adult. Final disclaimer. If you don't like my language around this, I don't care. I find pedophilia disgusting and I would never defend or justify their actions. If you don't like my phrasing, that's your own projection onto me. I don't agree with any actions, whether it's raping a 15-year-old or whatever else I may have said not according to the script. Have a good day. Stories number 38. Hope this helps someone. I finally realized the common denominator in 3 generations of my family's halitosis. When I was a kid, I noticed my grandfather had horrible halitosis. My mother then developed it as well. It was weird because it was exactly the same peculiar, moldy-smelling bad breath odor even though they didn't live together or have the same diet. Then, my brother developed it. Then, I did, though not to the same degree. It's a horrible smell and was really confounding because we've always practiced good oral hygiene, had regular dental exams, and didn't even have cavities. I wondered at one point if we had an inherited halitosis gene. Then, one day, when we were all in the same room and quietly working on a project, I noticed everyone was sniffling every few seconds. Now, I had always noticed this, but hadn't ever given it much thought. On this particular day, it clicked that the only people in the family with chronic halitosis are the ones who sniffle 24/7. Turns out that particular foul smell is the result of really bad untreated postnasal drip, something I only had on occasion, but which the others had continuously all their lives. Since they began dealing with the PND, the halitosis has been virtually eliminated. Stories number 39. Aita for telling her not to call me mom anymore. This is a long story, so I apologize. I have a large family and 3 kids, 23M, also who this is about, 18M, 17M. Xander, 23, was my only child for several years, so we had a bond that most don't. He was truly a kid who I thought would make me proud. At least, until his teenage years. We became distant once he turned 13 as he wasn't interested in spending time with the family anymore. I focused on the younger 2 and let him do his own thing. He was able to graduate, go to college, and got a job. All good, right? This is where things changed. Xander came to me last year and said he wanted to be a girl called Charlotte. I will now use Charlotte and call her a girl for the rest of the story. I have nothing wrong with this, but for personal reasons I had to tell her that she can't be considered my daughter. I told her if she goes through with it I will respect her, but she can't call me mom and Xander will officially be gone. She agreed, and since then we have had a tenant-slash-landlord relationship. She rents a room from us and tries not to interact with the family. I tell everyone that Xander passed and they have no idea about Charlotte. This has worked fine, but I still feel guilty. I can see her in pain all the time, but what can I do? I couldn't consider us family anymore. It hurts me, it really does. Is it wrong? Stories number 40. My wife and I decided to visit a funeral museum. It was great until we got to the gift shop. That's disgusting, my wife, Jennifer, pointed at the display. It depicted a tribe of people eating one of their own. According to the description, the tribe depicted believed that consuming the dead was a sign of love and respect. The display was part of the Funerals Around the World exhibit at the funeral museum we decided to visit after finding the brochure for it in the lobby of our hotel. I don't know, I eyed her, you look pretty tasty. I might have to take a bite out of you when you die. Ugh, she groaned, why do you have to be so gross? I thought that's why you married me. I married you for your money, Jennifer smiled, if you weren't rich, your gross ass would be single. I clutched my chest, feigning that she'd mortally wounded me with her comment. That would be ironic, she said. What would? You dying in a funeral museum. That would be weird, I agreed. Come on, Jennifer started walking towards the next exhibit, let's keep moving. We walked through the remaining exhibits, talking about the various gruesome funeral rites on display until we reached the gift shop. Do you want a souvenir? I gestured at the shelves of funeral-themed merchandise laid out before us. I don't think so. Can I interest you in a personalized photo? The pale man behind the counter asked. He was clearly dressed up to look like a funeral director. I walked up to the counter and looked at the two macabre photos he had lying on the counter, one of me, and one of my wives. The photos showed a close-up of each of us lying in a coffin. I don't look that old, do I? Jennifer asked. In the photo, she looked about 15 to 20 years older than she did now. So did I. How did you make these? I asked. We have special cameras throughout the facility, the man replied. It looks like they use some kind of filter, Jennifer said, like they do on TikTok. How much are they? They're free with admission. He slid the photos over to me. Cool, thanks. I picked them up and started walking away. Why would you want those? Jennifer sneered, they're so morbid. I ignored her and examined the photos. Look, they have dates on the back, I pointed, I wonder what they're for. The dates, which were 17 years in the future, were the same on each photo. When I turned around to ask the man about them, he was gone. Standing in his place was a young woman. Excuse me, I said, do you know what these dates mean? I pointed to the backs of the photos. No, she replied, you should ask whoever gave them to you. That other guy who works here gave them to us, I said. What guy? She asked. I described him. Nobody like that works here, she replied, and we don't give out morbid death photos like those. Stories number 41. My husband goes to hostess bar for work and I hates it. Advice needed. We moved to a new country in East Asia for his job, and just 3 weeks in, he's already been working night shifts a few times. It's disappointing because we were promised more family time and better financial stability here, but I can't help feeling miserable. I feel terribly alone here with our 2 children, whom I love, but it's exhausting staring at them 24/7. When I'm by myself, I feel like a single mother. There are days when he goes to the bar with his colleagues and comes home drunk. Being the lowest in the hierarchy, he told me he can't leave until his bosses do. In the 3 weeks we've been here, he's come home drunk twice, filling the house with the strong smell of cigarettes and alcohol. One time, I had to clean up his vomit because I insisted he take a shower to avoid smelling like booze. Yesterday, he told me he had to go to a hostess bar, what they call a KTV here. I was devastated. It felt like he was at a place filled with women where men go for entertainment and pleasure. He didn't come home that night because he had to work odd shifts right after. At this point, it feels like this is becoming the norm since he does these late shifts about once a week. A few days ago, he asked me what I consider cheating. He personally doesn't think it's cheating if he just has his arms around a woman or if she massages him while his colleagues are around. He said they usually just sit on couches and play games, drink, and chat with the women, but his colleagues, whether married or not, might engage in other services. He assured me he wouldn't. I told him I was uncomfortable with the whole situation and that it would be cheating if a woman touches him in that context and if he puts his arms around her. He gave me a look of annoyance and said, okay, if you say so. He promised to be open and honest with me, but that's all he can do. Still, it's been incredibly depressing, and I feel helpless. Edit. I'm sorry if I worded it wrong, but the right word for that place would be a KTV. At least from what he told me, the place is a small establishment. Like there are dimly lit rooms with party lights, and when you get in they will get the ladies to seat next to you to serve you. Usually, they are like Thai or Vietnamese. TLDR. We moved to a new country for his job, but after just a few weeks, he's been working night shifts and going to bars with colleagues. He came home drunk twice, and recently he went to a hostess bar, KTV, which made me feel deeply upset. He doesn't think certain interactions with women count as cheating, but I disagree. Despite his promise to be open with me, I feel miserable and helpless about the situation. Stories number 42. I hate how this turned out. I, 35M, married my wife, 33F, 11 years ago. We put off having children so we could travel and see the country. I made enough money to support our lifestyle and allowed her to be a stay-at-home wife. Shortly after bridging the gap over 30, we both decided to not try for children. Our protection failed. We did not realize until it was too late to do anything but keep calm and carry on. This came as mixed initially, but over time we both grew to like the idea of being parents. After my son was born, I took over the household chores for a couple months, took time off work and spent time close to home. I noticed something about my wife's behavior that bothered me. We brought up some of her issues with her OBGYN and she recommended antidepressant meds. That was a no. She recommended therapy. That was a no. My wife was suffering from postpartum depression and things rapidly deteriorated. She would spend hours in bed or laying in the shower. I continued to work full-time, watch the baby and maintain the house. As she got worse, our relationship grew more strained. Then she started hearing voices. Things have gotten so much worse in the months since. She flat out refuses help. No meds, no doctors, nothing. She thinks Satan wants to have sex with her, that Jesus wants to have sex with her. That people can talk to her through YouTube, that our son isn't my son but the son of the devil. She's sucked into tarot YouTube and ultra-Christian videos explaining the Bible. This is not the free spirit I married. The quiet goth girl who disdained all religion and agreed with me on social issues. I don't think she is ever coming back. But I have a son to raise and I don't know what to do. I never imagined what postpartum could turn into and I have no idea what to do. Edit. As many have suggested it, I chose to seek emergency services for my wife. Now I have much bigger problems. First, we tried the emergency room. That was a bad idea as they both refused to help, and my wife realized what I was trying to do. This made her very upset. She started crying, which started my son crying. The emergency room sent us home where she locked herself in the bedroom. I called the police. They came and she let them in to talk to her. They came out and said even though she is having delusions she is not a danger to herself or the baby, so there is nothing they can do. Edit 2. I hope anyone reading this realizes I am not going to abandon my wife during her time of need. I didn't know how to get her help and I'm very overwhelmed. Many people have offered some great resources, and for that alone I am so thankful. Though family isn't the best option to keep my son safe, I do have a strong community at my job and there are many people who are stepping forward and offering to help watch my son while I navigate getting my wife help. To those wondering, no family history of schizophrenia. Her father is a recently diagnosed narcissist and she has always been convinced her mother is borderline, but that was never diagnosed. The more I read about postpartum psychosis, the more I realized that is exactly what is happening. I have known this woman for 15 years, we have been through a lot and she has never acted like this before. I appreciate everyone here who has offered me sound advice. Edit 3. So everyone is clear, I did not, and will not be leaving my son with my wife going forward. I have a good support system through work and several people volunteered to help watch him while she is getting better. People here have given me great information, but the best resource is this thread. After I got off work and checked on my son, I went home to show her that there was reason to be concerned. We talked for almost 3 hours and went through many comments. She's still not convinced that something is wrong, but has agreed to go with me on Monday to the behavioral health hospital. Thank you so much, from the absolute bottom of my heart, thank you. Edit 4. She went with me to behavioral health willingly. Even without an appointment we were able to be seen quickly after I explained the situation. They asked so many more questions, and the staff was much more supportive and understanding. She is currently in for a 72-hour evaluation, but I met with a lawyer shortly after to discuss what my options are and what the best next steps for my family are. I want to thank every single one of you who left a message expressing concern. Your words helped me to get my wife to seek the assistance she needs. When I made this post I had never heard of postpartum psychosis, and I was certain I had lost the person I had pledged to spend my life with. I know there is a long uphill battle ahead, but again, thank you for helping her take the first step. Stories number 43. I need this thrift store item to be 30% off, you evil woman. Walked into Value Village today with my 10-month-old to instantly be met with screaming. I look to where the screaming is coming from, and there's this boomer at checkout yelling with a worker that's clearly young and still in high school. Boomer is insisting that her $8 item is supposed to be 30% off, to which the worker ensures it is not. She then breaks into a loud cry and wails, "Why are you doing this to me, you evil woman?" While the worker remains calm, Boomer tries several approaches to getting her discount. She says yellow tags are always 30% off. When that fails she says, "Well, I have a coupon." To which she starts digging in her bags for something she obviously doesn't have. She intermittently breaks into tears and mentions how upset the evil people are making her because they just want to kick her out. She also looks around several times to see who's watching. I can hear the conversation continue as I do my shopping. After being there for about 30 minutes, I purchase my things and she's still there. Still upset, she sits near the front door, makes a phone call and cries to the person on the other end about how she's been waiting for a shuttle all day and how mean the workers were. How are people getting this far in life on this behavior? I joke to my 10-month-old, "I brought you into this world and if you ever act like that, I'll take you out of it." Stories number 44. Today, I scared off a creeper following two preteen girls. Today, I, 40F, took my toddler to a nearby playground park. The park is right next to a middle school, and we heard school let out while my kid was playing. A few minutes later, two preteen girls, 12 to 13 years old, walked through the playground to hang out on the swing set. Giggling and talking to each other. But about 15 to 20 foot behind them was a 30 to 40 years old strung-out creeper dude who couldn't take his eyes off them. My gut was screaming he was up to no good. He looked high as fuck on meth. Before the girls arrived, I had already picked up my kid to walk back to our car. But as we walked closer to the entrance, I heard the creep was mumbling, I shouldn't. Not now." He saw me watching him like a hawk. We made eye contact and he immediately turned around and started walking out of the park. But he kept stopping to look at hiding spots within eyeline to the playground, behind a big tree, behind the bathroom building, and next to a big forest. I kept positioning myself in a way so he could still see I was very obviously watching him. The park was very big, and there were others there, but nowhere near the playground. So I lingered with my kid, watching as the creep left the park grounds and wobbled down the street. I quietly approached the girls and asked if they knew that guy. They didn't even realize there was anyone behind them. I calmly described him and said he followed them into the playground and to keep a good eye out as they went home. Asked them to please be safe. I apologized for saying something so scary, but I wanted them to stay out of harm's way. What made me most sad was one girl was terrified, the other was completely unfazed and said, "I've been stalked before. I'll pay better attention." The one girl was about to cry, the other acted like it was no big deal. I called the cops and reported the creep at the park. He had walked away down the street by that point, but I couldn't shake that feeling that I was meant to be there at that exact moment. Stories number 45. My boyfriend cheated on me and now I'm seeking an abortion. I'm estimated to be 9 to 10 weeks pregnant. I'm 25 and my boyfriend, M38, of 4 years cheated on me with several different women. I found out he was cheating on me all the way back from 2 years ago. Whenever he's out of town for work he downloads Tinder and then uninstalls or temp deactivates or hides his Tinder profile while he's back home. I saw his dating app. I'm grossed out that his age range is set to 18 to 27 years old, HES 38 like what 18 to 19? 20-something I can understand but 18 to 19? What? They are practically high schoolers. He had sex with a bunch of them, which is so fucking gross. Why? After 4 years? I'm so attached to him I'm carrying his baby too. Why do they always do this after they baby trapped you and when you're in love with them? I don't want to carry a cheater's baby. I don't want to be a single mom. I don't want to have a baby with someone I broke up with. The only problem is I live in Mississippi and I'm not allowed to get an abortion here unless if it's rape or at life of a mother, which I'm not any of those things. Will it be illegal for me to seek out an abortion in another state? Do I have to lie about my address on the medical forms? What state can I go to get an abortion? These laws are so confusing because every state has their own different laws by weeks. Which one would be closest to me? Edit TOADD, IDGAF. What y'all think about abortion? Take it to a debate sub because I give 0 fucks. I'm not asking for advice on what you think about the situation. I literally don't care about what you, a random person on the internet, thinks. I'm just trying to get information about the above paragraph. Thanks for the people that are actually answering my questions and concerns. Stories number 46. Am I overreacting? TMI warning. Me and my fiancé were in the middle of your kidding doing IT and his mom called, and he answered mid me writing that thing. I immediately got up and started putting my clothes back on, because WTF, it turned out to be a call because she needed him to do his brother's laundry, again. And after he got off the call he was all like, why'd you put your clothes back on, and tried to continue on. I tried to explain how it was disrespectful to me and he calls me selfish and shames me because I don't understand, because no one depends on me. He is 21 and his mom is 39 BTW. He told me I'm overreacting and I need to understand that if anyone calls in his family, no matter what it is, he's gonna pick up. Am I selfish or is this just actually nuts and I'm right? Stories number 47. My parents didn't attend my graduation. I think this was the final blow for our relationship. Honestly, this is more so to get off my chest than anything. First time using Reddit, long time viewer. I, 21F, have had a rocky relationship with my parents as of late. It's upsetting and frustrating, as I try to be a good kid for them. I obey their rules regarding tattoos and piercings, I pay rent and all of my own bills. I don't get into trouble, rarely drink, and I don't smoke. Yet, they try their damnedest to make me out to be a problem child. Maybe it's because a lot of their friends have what could be considered problem children and they feel left out. I don't know. I think they hate the fact I dress alternatively, as they had a talk with me about how I need to stop. Recently, arguments have been getting worse. They keep insisting I get a job despite me currently having a minimum wage job, although to be fair, they aren't being generous with hours. Again, I should reiterate, I pay all my own bills, including car bills and rent. Basically, acting as if I'm unemployed because I don't get enough hours, and also acting as if I'm lazing about in bed doing nothing, when in reality I'm doing a lot of chores, pet care, and job hunting, yet my parents seem to think getting a job is so easy and I'm not trying. They have also kicked me out multiple times following arguments, resulting in me crashing at a friend's or even in my car, despite the freezing temperatures. I'm also a type 1 diabetic, and have been left without insulin during some of these times, something which is incredibly dangerous. I should also add they took my key, meaning I have to knock to get into the house whenever I leave. On to the main issue, I guess. After one of these arguments, my parents did this thing they do frequently. It's where they bad talk me to each other, but loud enough for me to hear. My dad said something I fear will stick with me forever. I'm not going to the graduation anymore. I don't want to have to go and pretend to be proud of that. My mom also confronted me later, and reiterated they weren't going. It hurt, as they knew how hard this year has been. ID suffered multiple losses, and almost lost my own life this year. It's a miracle I passed my course at all. As much as it stung, it was a relief, anyway. I'd only invited them, 2 tickets max per person, to avoid another argument. They didn't support me at all. They made my life hell, between threatening to sell my beloved pet, to turning off the internet when they knew I had assignments due, to criticizing every single breath I took. It meant I could invite my best friend, someone who actually supported me through the hellish year that was 2024. So I did that. Only for my mum to approach me yesterday and ask what the plans are for my graduation, and what we were doing. I was confused, as she had stated they weren't going and I had no intention of letting the money I'd spent go to waste and had given them to someone else. I explained that, and she simply said oh, huffed, and walked away. Due to unforeseen circumstances that are by no means my friend's fault, she couldn't attend. So, now I technically had 2 free tickets. But after everything, the trauma they put me through, I didn't want them to go. It was just as well, as they didn't deserve to hear the speeches given to the audience, thanking them for their support towards the graduates. They did not deserve to feel they were partially responsible for my success. It ached, seeing everyone have someone to take pictures, clap for them, etc. while I was alone. I at least had my supportive classmates, who took pictures for me. But it should have been tears of joy I had, not grief. It's something they'll never be able to take back. They'll never be able to undo the fact I was alone at my graduation, my once-in-a-lifetime event. Whenever I got back home, I had to knock to get in. I stood outside in the freezing cold for several minutes before being let in. My mother didn't say a word, not how did it go. Can I see pictures? Nothing. My dad treated me like a ghost. Didn't even look at me. Is it petty that, whenever it comes to my wedding day, and my dad asks to walk me down the aisle, I want to repeat the same words back to him? I don't want you to have to pretend you're proud of me. Before anyone suggests it, I'm already planning on moving out with a friend. We have found a place and are planning on filling out the form. I'm just wondering, is there any point in keeping a relationship with these people? They treat me so coldly, criticize my every breath, yet get angry at me because I never talk to them. They don't even feel like my parents anymore. Cutting contact sounds so appealing, but I worry the impact it would have on other familial relationships. My brother went through something similar at my age, but has since reconciled with my mum. I fear he would take her side, as my family often do without even asking me for my side. It's so unfair. I try my best. I work hard. I pay my bills and I behave. I don't ask them for anything except their love, but even that's too hard for them it seems. Any advice or insight would be great. Thank you for reading. Stories number 48. Aita for not wanting to hear about my friend's crush. Hey Reddit, I'm back. I know, I never left. I just want to rant and give an update on a situation a couple weeks back of when I told my friend I didn't wanna hear about her racist crush. She didn't understand why. I then second-guessed myself in wondering if I was wrong for not wanting to hear about the dude and his racism. He hates homeless black people. He specifically doesn't give homeless black people money, and he and his friends were racist in middle school, or high school, and he said, we all have it in us. So a TDLR version of the update. We talked it out. I set boundaries with her. She expressed to me she didn't like me ranting to my friends about it, and she still wants to be my friend. I tried to end the friendship. I don't want to be her friend anymore. Okay, long, better, Lucius, juicy version, LOL. So the day after the post I sent her a long-ass message that basically said I feel she is allowing and excusing his racism, she is okay with it, ANF that her whole attitude towards the situation turned me away from the friendship. She responded with an apology about making me feel like she tolerated something he did 3 years ago and that I mean so much to her, and that she got outside opinions on it. It was a nice statement. I can post the pictures of the text if you guys want, but they're like super duper long. After that, I caved and said we could stay friends because I didn't want to disrupt our social group, but just being around her isn't the same. I don't feel the same happiness with being her friend. It makes me dread school and more suicidal than I already am. It just makes me feel so icky and mad for one still being her friend and two brushing the entire situation under the rug like nothing happened. And it's gotten to a point recently where I flat out just don't like her, at all. The social weight of what happens if I ruin the relationship doesn't even matter to me anymore because I'm distancing myself from everyone. I was worried about how awkward lunch would be, but hey, I'm starting to sit alone at lunch both days, which is pretty frickin' nice guys, like dang. I get to be alone with my thoughts and work on school, like that is literal heaven to me. Another thing I noticed is she always comes around with something that's either negative or about guys. The constant negativity annoys me so bad. Plus the guy talk, it's not something I relate to. I find guys cute I guess, but my boyfriend tops all, plus her choice in guys isn't savory. And lastly, we just aren't as compatible as I thought, not that I really care anymore, I'm indifferent to the entire situation. And lastly, I realized that the one thing I can really take away from this is, I like being alone better and I don't have a great pick of friends. One friend lied to me for 2 years and doesn't respect my boundaries. This girl isn't the best, and other than that, I have friends, but not friends that know my favorite color or like know me really. So that's something I think is positive. I'm okay in solitude and the occasional texts and chats with my boyfriend that make me smile. Thanks for listening to my rant. It's nice to info dump on random strangers that really don't give a damn but do at the same time. Stories number 49. My sister female 40s thinks that if a 2-year-old has a bruise on them and she sends them to daycare that the daycare worker has a bruise on them that the daycare worker will contact Child Protective Services on us. Is this true? Hi Reddit female 32 here. So we have 5 minors in our house, male 17, 6 male 7 and 2 male twins 2 years old. Sometimes the twins would have bruises on them and she won't send them to daycare because she is afraid of Child Protective Services calling on her. It's not often, just sometimes. It's not every day, just here and there. Recently one of the 2-year-olds got a bruise on his inner thigh. We think it's from the high chair or the 17 years tickling them so hard. And she hasn't sent them to daycare today. They have Tuesday through Friday and they stay home Saturday and Sunday. They got the bruises over the weekend when their brother 14 and sister 12 ca over. So Reddit, is she overreacting or would they call on us over a bruise? Stories number 50. My husband ex whispered to their son daily about deleting himself and how to do it so she could gain full custody. I'm 38, F, and married to Tom, 39 M. Tom is the kind of dad you read about in fairy tales, an incredible father who prioritizes family, works hard, and is always there for his son, Jacob. He's involved in every school event, helps with homework, sings bedtime stories, and makes sure Jacob knows he's loved and supported. But Tom has been divorced from Jacob's mother, Eval, 43F, for years, and what we've been dealing with recently is beyond troubling. Over the past few months, we began to notice changes in Jacob's behavior when he would return from his mother's home. He started saying things like, "Mommy said I don't have to listen to you," or "Mommy said you don't love me." These moments were fleeting, and soon he would be the same loving boy I've grown to adore. Tom thought Jacob might just be struggling with the situation at his mom's house. Last week, Tom got an urgent call from Jacob's after-school program. Jacob had told staff that he wanted to hurt himself because all he hears is talk about death, and mentioned using his dad's knife. The knife in question is a decorative, non-functional piece from Tom's father that sits in Jacob's room. When Tom brought Jacob home to talk, Jacob revealed that his mother had been whispering these things to him, and he didn't really want to hurt himself. He said, "Mom tells me she's the only one who loves me and that Dad wants me dead." Mid-conversation, I saw Tom's face go blank as if he'd lost all hope. I called the emergency hotline from Jacob's risk management plan, and they connected us to Child Welfare Services, CWS. They opened a case and advised us to take Jacob to the local mental health hospital for an evaluation. At the hospital, Jacob told the doctor that he didn't want to hurt himself and that the words were his mother's. He explained how she whispers these things to him and, when he asks her to repeat them, she says, "That's not me, it's the voices in your head." He also mentioned that she constantly badmouths Tom and threatens to take away his friends and games if he tells anyone. Since that day, my husband has been a shell of himself. He barely speaks, and I see tears in his eyes every time Jacob has to go back to his mother. The court didn't see the gravity of the situation and simply told Tom to try harder to get along with her, leaving us devastated. Mental health professionals, including crisis intervention teams, have confirmed the severe trauma this has caused Jacob. This level of manipulation aligns with what Clore Rivlin's study on parental alienation describes as psychological abuse with long-lasting impacts. Yet, despite this, it feels like we're constantly fighting an uphill battle. Tom is terrified for Jacob, and now he's experiencing panic attacks, terrified to be near Eval. The court mandates that he communicate with her, only adding to his anxiety. Tom had to fight relentlessly to get Jacob into therapy, a process Eval obstructed at every step. She only conceded and a court date was approaching and then cancelled the appointment at the last minute. We have another court hearing in 2 weeks, but we're not hopeful that the judge will take meaningful action. We're doing everything in our power to protect Jacob, but we feel scared and helpless. I try not to let Tom see how worried I am, and I don't know how to help him beyond being there and praying for Jacob's safety. It's baffling because Eval was the one who divorced Tom and left him when Jacob was only 5 months old. Tom even gave her another chance to be involved in Jacob's life, and she was fine until last year. Then, for reasons we don't understand, she started acting like she hates Tom. If anyone has faced a similar situation or has advice on legal or therapeutic strategies for severe cases of coercive control and parental alienation, please share. We desperately need guidance to ensure Jacob's safety and well-being. Stories number 51. Aita for leaving my serial cheating BF after he paid for my education. Hi, Waffle Gang. I'm so sorry for the very long venting session I'm about to share with you. So, where do I start? I'm a 28-year-old woman with a child by a 30-year-old man. He was my boyfriend from 2016 to 2018. We got back together in 2020, and then, boom, in 2021 I found out I was pregnant. Unfortunately, when I was 6 months pregnant, his father got sick and passed away. He was buried just 3 days before I gave birth. I understand how conflicted he must have felt about our child. He had been unemployed from 2019 to 2021, he caught COVID and stayed home for a while. He eventually found a job abroad and had to leave just 7 days after I gave birth. My birth was horrible. I was in labor for 30 hours. The baby caused a lot of damage, and I was bleeding more than expected, so I passed out and was unconscious for 4 hours. When I woke up, I was told they had to give me a blood transfusion. I had 16 stitches and a third-degree tear. They kept me in the hospital for 3 days. Upon discharge, I was advised not to carry or walk with the baby, and to stay seated when holding her for at least 8 days. The baby usually has a 6-day checkup. So, I asked him if he would be able to drive us, knowing he was still dealing with his dad's insurance and preparing to leave the country. I figured I could make other arrangements if needed. He said no, he could take me. He did take me, but while I was waiting my turn at the appointment, he said he needed to leave to check on his mom. He said he'd come back for me, but he never did. I was shocked and couldn't even respond before he was gone. After my appointment, they checked my stitches and the baby, and everything seemed fine. So, I called him to tell him I was done. He told me he was in town and that I should just get a taxi. I have never felt so abandoned in my life. I went to the hospital gates and waited for a taxi, but I realized I couldn't carry my baby. It felt like I was pushing all my internal organs out. The security guard saw I was struggling and carried my baby for me, letting me sit down for a bit. I realized I had to walk to the library to ask for help, since the lady there is familiar with me. So, I walked 1 kilometer from the clinic to the library. She helped me and took me home. This was incident number 1. At that time, my mental state was at an all-time low. I hadn't felt love, happiness, or any positive emotions since I woke up after giving birth. I felt guilty for not loving my baby until 3 months later, when it hit me like a wave. I was also struggling with loving myself. I cried every night for no reason. I even felt my baby would be better off without me. It was bad. My boyfriend was gone for 6 months and came back for 2 months. He surprised me with a video call to show me he was at the airport. I was so happy and excited. The next day, I was fixing myself up to look nice for him. He came back, landed in Johannesburg, where his other family lives. He asked if he could stay with them for a few days, and I was okay with that. 2 days later, he became unavailable for the whole night. He said he passed out. That feeling of something being off hit me hard. I just knew something was wrong. The next day, he said he didn't want to stay there any longer and would come to see us. He came back, and when he left his phone unlocked, I checked it. I found out he had arranged a hookup, booked a B&B, and stayed there. I've never cried so much. Looking back, he might as well have just ended our relationship right then and there. But I was in such a bad place that I forgave him. The way he apologized wasn't heartfelt, it was more like, "I'm sorry I got caught." 2 months later, he sent me money to pay for my vehicle license, something I wanted to do. I passed on my first attempt, and I was so happy. He came back 6 months later. I wanted to do my honors degree while raising our child, so I told him I wanted to study online. He said I should apply and send him the bill. I was happy about that, and I was accepted to start in December 2022. However, in December 2022, I caught him red-handed at a garage with another girl. He claimed she was a cousin, but the girl was crying, and it seemed like she didn't know he was in a relationship. It felt like he was supporting my dreams, but it was all laced with poison. It felt like he hurt me first and then threw some cash at my wounds. It messed with my self-esteem, especially since I had gained so much weight after giving birth. I realize now how much I forgave him, even though I knew I deserved better. I loved him so much, and I wanted things to work. Fast forward to 2024. He came back again and cheated again. His best friend sent me a video of them cheating at a popular club. The girl he cheated with is older than both of us. She has 2 kids, is unemployed, has a permanently alcohol-ridden face, and holds a security certificate. I just felt apathetic toward the whole situation. But I realized I was finally starting to feel like myself again. I had the energy to work out, and I had just written my last exam on the 8th of this month. I know I did well, and I'm excited. I can almost smell cum laude. I'm so freaking happy about that. I also realized that if I stay, I will only resent him more, and it will affect the way we parent our child. I really don't want that. If I forgive him, I know he will do it again, and I can't live like that. I fought hard to get to a good place, and I want to stay here for longer. So, I sent him the video. He tried to lie and deny everything, never once saying, "I'm sorry." When I asked why he did it, he said it was because I seemed like I had 1 foot out the door, and he thought I had another man. I didn't. With the clarity I have now, I realized that I just found it difficult to be emotionally vulnerable with him. It always felt like I had to protect myself emotionally. So, would I be an asshole if I left? Somehow, he thinks I'm leaving because I'm done with my current studies, but I'm leaving because soon, our child will start to notice things, like when mom and dad used to spend time together, and then suddenly that's no longer happening. I know that if I stay and forgive him again, I'll just keep getting hurt. I don't need that in my life. I'm in a really good place now, and I fought to get here. I want to stay here for longer.